and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a glorious Thursday before a holiday weekend. And Dom, the breaking headlines of the day, they are glorious as well.
Karma's a bitch, Crudy. Fancy Brian on the board. Thank you, our fair audience. What a delightful day for justice. The headline from the Washington Post right now. Trump organization charged with 15-year scheme to defraud government. Chief financial officer charged with grand larceny, tax fraud.
Here endeth the lesson.
Fraud in the first degree, my understanding. This just happened. Weisselberg just got walked in the court. You were observing. I was here preparing. And you said, what, handcuffs, Dom?
Arms behind his back. He was handcuffed as he walked down the hallway that I saw on the CNN feed. So, yeah, that's got to be tough. 73-year-old guy with his hands behind his back, charged with larceny and fraud. Lots of charges here from the Washington Post. Prosecutors charged the Trump organization, again, with a 15-year scheme to defraud the government and charged the CFO, Weisselberg, with grand larceny and tax fraud in a Manhattan courtroom Thursday afternoon. Alan Weisselberg, former President Donald Trump's longtime CFO, pleaded not guilty during a brief arraignment hearing that began about 2:20 p.m. He walked into the courtroom in a dark suit, surrounded by detectives and court officers. He did not respond to questions from reporters in the hallway outside.
Why'd you do it, Mr. Weisselberg?
Was it worth it, sir? Weisselberg, 73, had surrendered to the Manhattan DA's office early Thursday, the morning after a grand jury filed indictments against him and the Trump organization. He was released after the hearing, but he was required to surrender his passport after prosecutors said it was a flight risk.
Oh, that's got to sting. Can't even go to Cancun.
An attorney for the Trump organization also pleaded not guilty on the company's behalf. Prosecutors also charged a subsidiary called Trump Payroll Corporation, which handles the company's benefits and payments to employees. In all, Crudy, 15 criminal charges filed against Weisselberg, according to a copy of the indictment obtained by the Post. They included counts of conspiracy, criminal tax fraud, and falsifying business records. In many of the counts, the two Trump entities were charged along with Weisselberg. And I did pull up the 25-page indictment and just want to read just a little bit, some of the meat here for our fair audience. As the indictment reads, one of the largest individual beneficiaries of the defendant's scheme was Alan Weisselberg himself, Crudy. During the operation of the scheme, the defendants arranged for Weisselberg to receive indirect employee compensation from the Trump organization in the approximate amount of $1.76 million. As described below, the defendants enabled Weisselberg to receive this compensation in ways that enabled the corporate defendants to avoid reporting it to the tax authorities and that did not result in the withholding of income tax by the corporate defendants. Weisselberg then concealed the compensation from his tax preparer and intentionally omitted it from his tax returns. Additionally, Weisselberg concealed for years the fact that he was a resident of New York City who was required to pay New York City income taxes. During the period of the scheme, Weisselberg thereby evaded approximately $556,000 in federal taxes, approximately $106,000 in state taxes, and another $238,000 in New York City taxes. On top of that, falsely claimed and received approximately $95,000 in federal tax refunds and approximately $38,000 in state tax refunds to which he was not entitled. I think that's the grand larceny part.
What did Trump say about those that pay the taxes? They're the suckers.
Suckers.
Trump and his organization, they never paid the taxes, Dom. Why do you need to pay the taxes? Just go
the
fight
little
it in
people.
court.
The little people pay the taxes.
Dominic, again from the Washington Post, Carrie Dunn, a prosecutor with the district attorney's office, said in the hearing that happened within the hour that the charges related to, and this is the quote, an off-the-books tax fraud scheme that lasted for 15 years. He said that the scheme allowed Trump organization executives to get secret pay raises while not paying proper taxes. Call those perks, right, Dom? Let me tell you how the prosecutor describes it. To put it bluntly, this was a sweeping and audacious illegal payment scheme. Sweeping, audacious, illegal payment scheme. Dunn said he rejected an allegation from the Trump organization that the charges were part of a politically motivated effort to hurt Trump. It ain't about politics. Trump organization attorney Alan Futerfas said he would not respond to the allegations in the hearing. I appreciate the news release, and I don't think at this point it warrants a response. An attorney for Weisselberg, Mary E. Mulligan, hope she gets another crack at it, said only that her side disputes the facts of the case. This is kind of a good day, at least for this show. You know, I'm enjoying
the facts of the case.
A little bit more from Mulligan. Mr. Weisselberg intends to plead not guilty, and he will fight these charges in court. He will fight them in court, Tom, or he might flip on his former boss, one or the other. We haven't decided yet what to advise our client. The Trump organization, in a statement, lauded Weisselberg as a loving and devoted husband, father, and grandfather who has worked for the Trump organization for 48 years. Yeah, I hope you got the next 48 to serve in prison, perhaps, sir. He is now being used by the Manhattan district attorney as a pawn in a scorched earth attempt to harm the former president. The district attorney is bringing a criminal prosecution involving employee benefits that neither the IRS nor any other district attorney would ever think of bringing. The statement said, "This is not justice. This is politics." Well, how else do you think they were going to play it down?
Come on, man! You're paying his rent and then booking it as legitimate rent expense, right? And then when you're flowing the money, you're not reporting certain things and misreporting certain things. I mean, this was a very specific, audacious effort, and we're talking. I mean, this is not a little bit of money. $1.7 million. I mean, if you walked in somewhere and just walked out with $1.7 million, I think there'd be some consequence to that beyond probation.
Dominic Trump, according to the Washington Post, in an interview Wednesday night from Texas, where he appeared at a presidential-style event with Fox News host Sean Hannity, lumped the New York investigations with other past probes that he has insisted have been politically motivated. "Oh, nonsense," he said. "The New York radical left prosecutors come after me. You got to fight." You know, Trump's going to fight, buddy. Prosecutors had declined to comment about the indictments Wednesday. Well, they made some comments in court today, Dom. What was that? Something about a wide-ranging illegal criminal scheme. Sweeping and audacious, I think they called it.
To put it bluntly, Crudy, this was a sweeping and audacious illegal payment scheme. That describes it fairly well.
Hence the felony counts, the taking of the passport, because apparently the 73-year-old Weisselberg's got some means at his disposal, Dom, and perhaps could live the rest of his life, out of justice's reach. But oh no.
No.
And one must wonder, does a 73-year-old man whose children may be implicated in this very perky scheme they've described, this tax avoidance plan, what they call it, a wide-ranging criminal scheme of some sort?
Maybe we could launder the money.
Audacious illegal payment scheme that involves the children. And probably, I got to think, Dom, could have some prison time at the end of it for somebody So the question becomes, do you turn on the boss? And here's what I would point out. They could have called all the media. They could have dragged this guy through big perp walk. I mean, once you're in the courtroom, you're fair game. The media knows by then. But the fact that the indictments came down last night, and Weisselberg, other than what a New York Times print photographer in the building, got the only snap of him, sort of turning himself over to justice earlier today. Well, if they weren't seeking to turn Weisselberg at this point, why not turn it into a big media event? Why not tell everybody? Hell, the devil's advocates might have been there.
Tip of the iceberg. Weisselberg, with these kinds of things going on, he's not the only one. There's certainly many more out there. And I think this is going to, it's going to get worse for Trump and the Trump organization. And I think you're right, Curdy. They could have made it a whole lot worse
Public
for Weisselberg,
spectacle.
right, as he walked in. But, if you're trying to make friends and influence people, even in the serving of justice for the people, they could have done it differently. They didn't. I think they're fairly respectful in that regard, and maybe a little respect will go a long way for the now criminally indicted Weisselberg.
Well, I think they let the indictments do the talking down. They got some heft to them. They're charging felonies, not just against the organization, but also against the CFO, guy that's worked for Trump for 48 years. Think he knows where a few of the skeletons are buried?
Scheme to defraud in the first degree.
Hell, when this is all said and done, I bet you Weisselberg tells us where Jimmy Hoffa's buried. I bet it's in the Trump Tower lobby. What do you think? Come back with us. It's a Thursday that feels a hell of a lot like a Friday. It's a Devil's Advocates radio show, and you can be a part. We're going to have a 5-guest, a former U.S. attorney in the 3 o'clock hour. We got U.S. Supreme Court rulings. They've come down against democracy, 6-3. We'll tell you all about it. And sorry if I take some glee in the discomfort of everyone that's ever been associated with the Trump org. Looking at you, Don Jr., Eric, Ivanka, Weisselberg, Gilligan, Marianne, the rest. Come back. More Devil's Advocates.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do.
You got nothing.
To conceal the source of money as by channeling it through an intermediary.
Grand theft, fraud, I think a jury will find it stealing.
Here ended the lesson.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. What about simply raising the age of weapons purchases to 21 years of age?
We're sending 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds over to Afghanistan, and they're dying. They ought to be able to vote. They ought to be able to have a beer, and they ought to be able to buy a gun to hunt with as well.
Are you suggesting we lower the drinking age?
No. Can't they do that now? What is the age nowadays?
It's 21, sir.
We drink when we toast. We toast when we drink.
Yikes.
I once thought of love as a prison,
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
I pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes.
I made a decision to be footloose and fancy free. But you came and I was so tempted to gamble on love just one time. I never thought I would get caught. It seemed like the perfect crime. Baby left me defenseless.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Phone lines are open 844-967-2789. Scheme to defraud in the first degree.
Love in the first degree.
I'm guilty, Tom.
Yeah, you are.
I'm guilty. Perhaps we'll hear those words coming out of Weisselberg. He appeared in court about 1:20 this afternoon Central Time.
He said not guilty in court.
Well, he didn't say it, but someone did, the lawyer on his behalf. But more from the Washington Post at this hour, Dom. In recent months, both sets of investigators, meaning the New York and D.C. investigators, have spoken to Jennifer Weisselberg, the chief financial officer's former daughter-in-law, who said that Weisselberg's son Barry had been given a free apartment and a hefty salary while he worked at the Trump organization's Central Park ice rink. That was the pay cash as you go ice rink. I've never heard of a cash only ice rink, but this one was. Prosecutors, where do most money launderers go? Cash only businesses, or at least cash intensive businesses, strip clubs, apparently ice rinks. Prosecutors were looking into whether taxes were paid on the benefits. People close to the investigation said the now merged investigation of Trump's company appears to be the longest lasting and most extensive prosecutorial examination ever undertaken of the Trump org. Vance's office opened an investigation in 2018, responding to former Trump attorney Michael Cohen's charges that Trump had directed improper payoffs during the 2016 presidential campaign to women who said they had affairs with Trump. Is that what you call it when Trump stumps them? But anyways,
it's an affair just sounds, so fancy.
Maybe with a playmate, but hardly an affair, at least in the description of Stormy Daniels. But good spanking on Shark Week, apparently. But Vance's probe then broadened, encompassing years of business transaction. Vance examined tax breaks that Trump got on an estate in suburban New York, loans Trump took out on his Chicago tower, and statements Trump made to New York tax authorities about the value of his Manhattan towers, according to previous court filings. Vance did not seek re-election this year. That means the bulk of the case against Trump's company could be handled by Vance's successor. Trump and his organization have never faced criminal charges yet, but Trump has been the target of lawsuits from the office of the New York Attorney General. And let's not forget, Dom, in one, he was sued for allegedly defrauding students at Trump University, a case that ended with Trump paying a $25 million settlement in 2016. And that in other cases, 2 years later, Trump was sued for misusing money in a charity he controlled. Self-dealing, I think they called it at the time, Dom. A judge ordered Trump to pay damages of $2 million and also banned the Trump charity from being a charity. And the Trump kids can't be on a charitable board either, right? You run out of words in the Washington Post, but I like to remember a few of those things. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling.
Crudy, a statement today by Donald J. Trump, the 45th president of the United States.
Soon to be indicted layman, private citizen Donald J. Trump, that guy?
Yeah, that guy.
Soon to be indicted guy. Okay, go ahead.
The political witch hunt by the radical left Democrats, with New York now taking over the assignment, continues. It is dividing our country like never before.
between the criminals and the non-criminals, and you, sir, are in the criminal column, allegedly.
So, Crudy, any concern that this is just all this time and all they got is Weisselberg and his taxes? I mean, that's not very sexy. And I mean, Trump's out there still walking around. He's not indicted. You know, some of the Trump defenders are out there saying, well, it's, his attorneys came out the other day and said, well, it's not Trump. They're not indicting Trump. So
Yet. I mean, when you're indicting the 48-year chief financial officer of the Trump organization, 48 years the guy's been on the job, and he's the bookkeeper. He's the guy managing the Trump checkbook. And Weisselberg's been charged with 15 felonies. His former daughter-in-law's coordinating with investigators. That's not good. Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, is coordinating with investigators. And one must think Rudy Giuliani is also considering flipping state's evidence. Dom, the noose is tightening around that oversized bronzed Cheeto neck.
The wheels of justice turn so slowly. I mean, I'm down. I'm happy. This is a great day. It's about friggin' time. I mean, and what, 2-3 years of looking into these matters?
You gotta restart the clock with the end of the Trump presidency. Everything prior to that, the whole office of legal counsel can't indict a sitting president. Just think of this in terms of Joe Biden's presidency forward. January 20th forward, Tom. This is actually on fast forward. I mean, these sort of indictments coming down this rapidly. When we look back in history, Dom, A, at the glorious days, we're to say this is probably one of them.
This is one of them.
And B, this is actually moving very rapidly, at least since Trump has left office. And I got to think, there are further indictments coming down, Dom. But, these tax fraud things, it's not sexy. It may have teeth. But I can't wait till the Georgia lawsuits come down. Or maybe the insurrectionist lawsuits or criminal charges against the former president. Treason, sedition, allegedly. Come back, join us on the phones. Devil's Advocates Radio Show, 844-967-2789. Loving the first degree. Love you back.
I want to release my tax returns, but I can't release it while I'm under an audit.
This will pay for itself.
In time, you will know the true power of Devil Radio 92.7. It is your destiny.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
When it comes to computers, Madison Computer Works has been the leader in computer help, service, and support for more than 35 years. Our friendly techs have the expertise to help you choose the right computer for your needs. We make it easy to get a new computer by moving your data, reinstalling programs, and setting up your printers and email for you. Our competitive pricing and awesome tech support make moving to a new computer painless and affordable. Whether servicing your old computer or buying a new one, we'll help you do it right. Madison Computer Works, computers that work for you.
Get ready to get local. Saturdays at 11 a.m., Dane by Local and 92.7 FM Devil Radio bring you Let's Get Local, a new program featuring area businesses and nonprofits that make our community unique and special. So tune in Saturdays and go.
You with an AP News Minute. In New York today, not guilty pleas from Donald Trump's company and a top executive.
The Trump Organization and its chief financial officer have pleaded not guilty to tax crime charges in New York. Charges against the Trump Organization include conspiracy, grand larceny, and tax fraud. CFO Alan Weisselberg was arraigned one day after a grand jury returned an indictment charging him and the Trump Organization with tax crimes. The 73-year-old Weisselberg has worked for the Trump company for decades. Former President Donald Trump was not charged. It is the first criminal case arising from a 2-year investigation into the Trump Organization by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I'm Mike Rossio.
Trump Organization attorney Alan Futerfas says they are going after a former president.
That is a significant line to cross. And quite frankly, not just as a lawyer, but as a citizen, we're very concerned about that.
The former president was not charged. I'm Ed Donahue.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
Ugh, my stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, a Dane County Circuit Court ruled that the Wisconsin State Assembly violated the state's open records law when refusing and delaying the release of sexual harassment claims involving a former state lawmaker. The court ruled the Assembly must provide the records without redactions in the next 5 days unless the decision is appealed. Yesterday, Governor Tony Evers vetoed a bill that would have barred local governments from accepting private donations to help run elections in the future. During the pandemic, the Center for Tech and Civic Life donated private funds to assist 200 communities around the state in administering their elections. Sunny skies in the forecast today, with temperatures expected to get up to around 81 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected to roll in this evening with an overnight low of 55 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I couldn't pick the proper time to interrupt the singer, man. I like what I was hearing. Dame Glorious Thursday afternoon, mostly because the Trump org and the former CFO of the Trump org, I mean, does he get fired or does he keep the job during the trial?
That's a great question. I mean, presumably, if this was done without Donald Trump's knowing, I'd be just beside myself if I had my CFO for almost 5 decades cause my corporation to be charged with 10 felonies on top of his own CFO's, his own 15 felony counts. I mean, as a business owner, I'd be beside myself. He'd be fired immediately.
They hire usually good people.
Now Trump's going to call him the coffee boy, but he was the chief financial officer of the Trump organization. And the Raw story, one of my favorite sources, provides us with the 10 most important details in the 15-count indictment of Trump ORG-CFO Alan Weisselberg. And we'd like to share with you, our fair audience, the indictment documents for Weisselberg and the Trump organization have been published, revealing several different allegations documented by prosecutors to be illegal. All in all, there were 15 counts stemming from untaxed benefits to Weisselberg from the Trump organization. I'm going to need some help from you, man. We'll take turns here. Number one, sort of the important stuff you should know. Number one, the illegal behavior went on at least from 2005 until today. Here is a quote. Beginning from at least 2005 to on or about June 30th of 2021. I mean, that was yesterday. And they dropped this indictment yesterday. So they're talking about pretty current behavior. The defendants and others devised and operated a scheme to defraud federal New York State and New York City tax authorities. The purpose of the scheme was to compensate Weisselberg and other Trump organization executives in a manner that was off the books.
Cody,
off
number
the books,
two. Weisselberg scored almost $1.8 million in gifts under the table. Prosecutors listed substantial portions of their income through indirect and disguised means that Weisselberg received through indirect employee compensation from the Trump Organization, an approximate amount of $1.76 million.
Dominic, you've got the NBA. I do not. How does one claim a loose joint as income on one's taxes?
Well, Kurt, of course, cannabis is still scheduled as illegal under federal law, so I don't think you have to.
I'm not going to claim anything then. Number 3, prosecutors detailed that this meant Weisselberg owes a hefty sum in taxes. Welcome to my world, fella. During the period of the scheme, Weisselberg thereby evaded approximately $556,000 in federal taxes, $106,000 in state taxes, and about $238,000 in New York City taxes. And he falsely claimed and received approximately $95,000 in federal income tax returns and approximately $38,000 in state tax refunds, to which he was not entitled. Not only did he cheat on his taxes, he got a tax return. I wonder if he was stimulus eligible, Dom.
Crit larceny. Number 4, Crudy, from the Raw Story Top 10, Weisselberg's wife scored a great deal too. The payment of leases on Mercedes-Benz automobiles for Weisselberg and his wife was also cited by prosecutors.
Number 5, an unnamed family member benefited as well. It's probably one of his sons. Here's a quote. One such person was a family member of Weisselberg. And again, if you're unaware, if you are, let's call you an unindicted co-conspirator, unless you are individually indicted, they usually redact the names of the co-conspirator because, how does one defend oneself until one is charged in a court of law in the grand jury, Tom? One such person was a family member of Weisselberg who was employed by the Trump Organization and was permitted to live in a Trump Organization-owned apartment located at Central Park South. That's an expensive little area in Manhattan, Dom. Central Park South? Wow. He occupied that apartment from 2005 to 2012, paying approximately $1,000 a month in rent. Oh, that seems very fair market for
totally
Central Park Manhattan
$1,000
accommodations. In 2018, Weisselberg's family member was allowed to occupy a different Trump-owned apartment on East 61st Street in Manhattan with no reported rent at all. That's talking about rent control. I want the no rent at all deal on 61st Street in Manhattan. You can have the Central Park South, Tom.
Okay, I'll appreciate that. Crudy, number 6, while dodging paying taxes, Weisselberg also got IRS refunds, which you mentioned. The scheme enabled Weisselberg to obtain tax refund funds of amounts previously withheld.
Number 7, Weisselberg is accused of trying to pretend he wasn't a New York City resident to avoid taxes. The defendants not only failed to report and failed to pay income taxes in connection with Weisselberg's New York City apartment, New York City, but they also concealed his status as a New York City resident and enabled Weisselberg to avoid the payment of New York City income taxes. You think he claimed he lived in Jersey?
I don't live here. I'm just staying here. Crudy, free tuition, number 8. Beginning in 2012, one of Weisselberg's family members began attending a private school in Manhattan. Beginning in 2014, a second Weisselberg family member began attending the same private school.
Cash, Dom. Cash was allegedly given out disguised as holiday cost. I'd like some cash for Christmas this year. Here's the quote. The cash was given to Weisselberg for his personal use. I need some company cash. That is a hell of a sweet job.
Hey, man, the drug dealer doesn't take Venmo.
I would like the company cash for the weekend, and you're not asking the right drug dealer. Check with Matt Gates' guy. The Trump Corporation booked this cash as holiday entertainment. Is it normally strippers, Dom?
No, I think it's like for school or education.
But maintained internal spreadsheets. So they had alternative books, Dom, showing the real
multiple
stuff.
Books. Absolutely. You got to keep track of the real.
But maintained internal spreadsheets showing the cash to be part of Weisselberg's employee compensation. Well, that's going to undermine his tax returns. The cash distributed in this manner was not included in Weisselberg's W-2 forms or otherwise reported to federal, state, or local tax authorities, and no income tax was withheld by the corporate defendants. I like saying it like that, in connection with the cash payments.
Well, I mean, maybe Weisselberg took the cash and bought, the holiday cards and the holiday turkeys and whatnot and handed them out. I mean, maybe he's got receipts for all the cash purchases.
Dominic, that's why I compensate you entirely in bar tab and loose joints.
Crudy, number 10, the misreporting of employee compensation as non-employee compensation. The end-of-year bonus checks drawn on entities other than Trump Payroll Corp were routinely reported to tax authorities as non-employee compensation. Weisselberg was not a self-employed individual, but because he purportedly received substantial non-employee compensation from the entities such as Mar-a-Lago and Woolman Rink operations, as set forth, he falsely reported the receipt of self-employment income and thereby falsely claimed that he was entitled to an annual exclusion from his income and the amounts described in his Keogh plan. This is a tax-deferred pension plan. Other counts include conspiracy in the 4th degree, grand larceny in the 2nd degree, criminal tax fraud in the 3rd degree, criminal tax fraud in the 3rd degree, criminal tax fraud, several in the 3rd degree, another one in the 4th degree, offering false instrument for filing in the 1st degree, offering false instrument for filing again in the 1st degree, and 3rd in the 1st degree. He's got several of those. Falsifying business records in the 1st degree 3 times. Actually 4. Crudy, and here's the number. And this is what
Add
I've
it
been
up
wondering.
for us, man. I'm not great at
this
doing
is what I've
math
been
on the
wanting to
radio.
know the whole time. What are we really talking about? Well, according to the Raw story, the total of the 15 counts would result in 105 years in jail if guilty on all counts.
Damn,
Ooh.
that's steep.
73 years old. I mean, that's almost like a life sentence.
Don't worry about anything, Frankie Fiver.
Yeah, right. We'll have a party in your honor. The kids will be taken care of.
You think he's gonna get in the warm bath and maybe, do the general thing they described in, which was it? The Godfather Part 2, I believe. What was that guy's name?
He just said it, Frankie.
They went home and sat in the hot bath, opened up their veins, and bled to death.
And their families were taken care of.
Hey, have a good night. Good to talk to you, Frankie.
Now, that was the Robert Duvall character that came to see Pantangeli in prison, was it not?
It certainly was. Good memory, Crudy. So 105 years, man. I mean, 105 years. If you are the prosecutor, if you are advanced and you want to apply some pressure to the CFO to flip 15 felony counts looking at 105 years, that might motivate somebody. And even if you get 1/10 of that at 73 years old, you want to spend the last 10 years of your life in the clink?
I'm not clear. Dom, there are several big breaking headlines today. A January 6th commission. And there were appointments announced by Nancy Pelosi. I'd like to hear indictments announced against a few Republican Congress people and perhaps the former president and his legal counsel. You remember the trial by combat guy. But one of the most stunning announcements, at least the committee assignments, Dom, the Democratic House Speaker chose Republican Liz Cheney to be on the January 6th commission. And that's got Kevin McCarthy. Oh, his panties are in a wad. I'm telling you, he's all upset about that, Dom. Threatens retribution and all kinds of stuff, doesn't he?
He doesn't seem very happy about it. Now, my understanding, he was threatening to pull people off of their committee assignments, et cetera, if they were to be involved. And again, it's one thing that you voted against the bipartisan. You actually had some Republicans that were down for it. Now you have this partisan commission, unfortunately. But with Cheney, maybe it's a little less partisan.
Well, I'm not clear whether or not she's partisan. Kevin McCarthy claims, I'm not threatening anybody. And he backs down from punishing Liz Cheney over her January 6th committee assignment. Apparently you're not supposed to take a committee assignment from the enemy, if you will, Dom. I thought I saw one more, something about Liz Cheney, like celebrating her committee assignment, kind of throwing it back in Kevin McCarthy's face.
Yeah, something that she was honored to be on the committee.
Sort of an FU via Twitter, right, Dom? Trump used to send a lot of those.
Not anymore.
So I think better stuff is in the future, Dom. I'm encouraged by the headlines of the day. And then the Supreme Court ruled on a couple of important issues. And Jim Santelle, former U.S. attorney, is soon to be our guest. Jim had warned us there were a couple of big voting rights lawsuits that were coming down from the Supreme Court. And Jim had said, watch out. And 6-3, the conservative bloc of the Supreme Court, and the first one was written by Alito. First and foremost, it accepted and overturned the lower courts in an Arizona case. And let's not forget, the Roberts Court had already gutted the Voting Rights Act, at least Article 5 of the Voting Rights Act. And that was the Shelby versus Holder ruling. And we've got this new 6-3 ruling that came down today that basically goes after, Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act, further undermines the Voting Rights Act. And above and beyond that, the Supreme Court also ruled that a California nonprofit can keep their donors anonymous. So anyone hopeful that we'll have more transparency, if you can't keep the money out, at least we should know who is giving the money to whom. But the 6-3 conservative bloc of the U.S. Supreme Court says, no, you don't need to know any of that. And it's never really racially motivated. How could it be? Asked Samuel Alito on behalf of the conservative majority. So the Supreme Court has shown their true colors. They're kind of against democracy. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Happy Thursday.
Well, if you say who gets fired, it always has to be the top. I mean, problems start from the top, then they have to get solved from the top.
What'd you do?
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Sinner.
Here's that song again. Here's that song again. For the 100th time today. Here's that song again. It's gonna be stuck in your head all day. Here's that song again. It will make you cray, cray.
You love your kids enough to watch that TV show a bajillion times. Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat for their age and size. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join MoveOn's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates.
There are lots of people that haven't made up their mind on this race, and you think, how could that be? No, there are. There are a lot of people that could still make a decision all the way on election day down.
Undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Yosemites.
Because freedom. Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for you. Jim Santelle going to join us at the top of the hour. But we can squeeze you in now if you have something to say. 844-967-2789.
Dominic, we like to nominate and eventually award a D-bag of the day. And we normally do so right about now. But today, I cannot constrain myself to one singular nominee. I'd like to nominate the entire conservative bloc of the U.S. Supreme Court. I'd like to make
D-bag of the day.
Yeah, 6 nominations. I'd like to start with the Paul Waldman piece. He'll support my rationale, I suspect. To no one's surprise, the Supreme Court, 6 conservatives on Thursday, D-bags all, ruled for Republicans in a pair of key voting rights matters, upholding 2 Arizona voter suppression laws. It's part of a long-running partnership between Republicans in the states, Republicans in Congress, and Republicans on the Supreme Court to make sure that the rule of American elections are twisted and contorted to give the GOP every possible advantage. At issue was a section of the Voting Rights Act, the VRA, which was once the crown jewel of the U.S. voting law and a foundation of political equality that has been gutted by the Supreme Court, unremittingly hostile to voting rights. And the justices aren't done, not by a long shot. One of Arizona's laws makes it a crime for most people to deliver someone else's absentee ballot, a heretofore common practice of particular importance to Native Americans in the state. Native Americans in the state who find it challenging to vote given their wide geographic dispersion and slow mail service. And in parentheticals, Waldman writes, but also used regularly by organizers in Black and Latino communities. The other law says that if you vote in the wrong precinct, the state will throw out your entire ballot, even the votes for races where the precinct is irrelevant, not like the president or a statewide race. The laws were challenged as violating the Voting Rights Act because they disproportionately affect minority voters. As the plaintiffs pointed out, minority voters in Arizona are about twice as likely to mistakenly vote in the wrong precinct for a variety of reasons. Did the Republicans who put that law in place understand that? Oh, you bet they did. Section 2 of the VRA says statutes are invalid if they have the effect of harming people's ability to vote on the basis of their race, even if you can't prove that the party that passed it was doing so with racist intent. Whether that section of the VRA has any meaning in the wake of this decision, Dominic, is an open question.
Crudy, the decision written by Alito, argued that the system in Arizona offers ample opportunity for everyone to vote, even if it seems to fall heavier on some people, and concluded that the state's interest in preventing voter fraud outweighs whatever overall disparate impact the law has. The fact that voter fraud is almost entirely fictional did not disturb the justice, Waldman writes.
That is in no small part. I mean, yes, all 6 will be nominated, but you, Alito, eventually you're going to be the winner, but please continue, Don.
On a blistering dissent, Kagan wrote that the majority had essentially invented its own reading of the VRA and accused the majority of pretending not to know that such state laws are occurring in a context where efforts to suppress minority voters continue. No one would know this from reading the majority opinion, Kagan remarked. Kagan's disgust is appropriate. This case is part of a long and ignominious campaign by the court's conservatives to hollow out American democracy in any way they can, so long as doing so helps the Republican Party. For this court, no voting rights provision is too sacrosanct to strike down, and no voter suppression law is too discriminatory to uphold. If next week Republican-controlled states brought back poll taxes and literacy tests, the court would probably find a reason to validate them.
Yes!
In the past few years, this court again and again has taken a hammer to the rules meant to ensure free elections in which all Americans can participate on an equal footing. Let us remind ourselves, Crudy, in 2010, justices said corporations have the right to use their billions to influence elections. In 2011, they struck down public financing laws meant to allow candidates relying on small donations to compete with self-financed millionaires and billionaires. In 2013, they struck down the heart of the Voting Rights Act, claiming it was no longer necessary because racism is pretty much over. In 2018, they upheld ruthless voter purges that disenfranchised thousands of voters. In 2019, they ruled that partisan gerrymandering, no matter how clearly it disenfranchises people, is beyond the ability of the courts to do anything about. The partisan commitment of this court is so clear that in oral arguments, The lawyer for the Arizona GOP comfortably declared that the party has standing to support the law throwing out ballots cast at the wrong precinct because counting such votes puts us at a competitive disadvantage relative to Democrats. He knew who he was talking to. The big picture here is that the course conservatives operate according to heads we win, tails you lose approach to voting rights, in which, with only the occasional exception, the best predictor of how voting rights case will turn out is which side the Republican Party is taking. Pretty much the entire GOP is now committed to the idea that if elections were fair, they'd lose. So elections must not be allowed to be fair. That's why they've been on a tear at the state level, passing dozens of laws, making voting more cumbersome, inconvenient, and difficult, all aimed directly at populations they believe are more likely to vote for Democrats. Wherever those laws pass, they're being challenged in court. But what's going to happen when those challenges make their way to the Supreme Court with its 6-3 conservative supermajority? The answer is all too clear, writes Paul Waldman at the Washington Post.
Once upon a time, Dom, I talked about the fact that I didn't think we should stack the court. I didn't think we should expand the number of Supreme Court justices because I had not yet seen the sort of terrible ruling that would lead me to say that's the reason why. But now I've seen it. That's the reason why. We need to stack the courts. We need to expand the number of justices on the courts, because if the underlying root democracy is still in doubt and you got a supermajority, you got 6 conservatives that can move the goalpost on what democracy means at any given time. Well, Dom, it's time to stack the courts. It's time to change that because it starts from democracy. Once upon a time, I took a philosophy class with Sherwitz in college. I hated that class because I said, we've got to start from the principle that if the sky is blue in your world, the sky is blue in my world. There's got to be some basic tenets we agree upon. And if the Constitution and democracy, one man, one vote, equal access to the ballot, if those are not the important things, then we got a big problem. And we know we've got a big problem. We've been doing it here on the airwaves telling people we got a big problem. We've been telling you for 10 years. I hope you're listening. And I hope you stick around because we got a fine guest. He's going to tell you we got a big problem. His name is James Santelle. He's a former U.S. attorney. He's a friend of ours. He's coming back in hour 2, right? I see him. He's waiting on the Zoom. So I know the Jim will be our fine guest next. You stick around. More Devil's Advocates. It's a Thursday afternoon. It's glorious, but it kind of feels like a Friday, big holiday weekend and all. D-bag of the day.
Will there be a lawsuit? Yeah, probably.
I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
Hope you don't mind if I pay you in cash. I don't like Big Brother getting into my business, you dig?
Chad's Design Build is proud to sponsor the Summer of Love on Devil Radio. We are committed to our community to demand better for each and every person. Doing the right thing isn't necessarily easy or inexpensive, but when we take the time to listen and learn, we can build a better community. Thoughtful remodeling is...
Hello, Jim Santelle. With our special guest, Jim Santelle. Ah!
Wow, there's so much excitement today.
Biden, and thank
Maybe it's
you,
my
Devil
tie.
Radio.
I don't know.
On behalf of Chad.
Kermit the Frog.
Summer of Love.
Hey, I am Noemi. And
Us, not you. You sound like Jim. We sound like Kermit.
Wow,
Look like.
Join us as we discuss climate justice.
Anybody sounding like Muppets,
Aspects of our
that's
lives,
okay in
how
my
you
book.
work towards a more sustainable.
Works for me. With my improv troupe, between 2 guys and myself, we got every Muppet covered.
Email us at inpursuitofsunshine@gmail.com.
I need to take that in sometime.
I've smoked too much to do Miss Piggy anymore, but I had a good Miss Piggy.
That's Fridays at 7.
So did you know that you probably know this, there's an improv
You are listening to
up
WTTN
in Brookfield, I think, here sometime soon. Have you heard about this?
Oh, is it a comedy sports or is it a like an improv?
No, it's something different. It's not open yet, but I just see some publicity about it, and right off of Blue Mound Road, I think.
I got to talk to my buddy about that. I had a thought and then I went away from it, so I got to go back to it soon.
Okay. Good. We'll work on it.
Cool, man. We got about 5 minutes here.
Wonderful, good. More time to make more notes, right?
Officer have pleaded not
Weisselberg.
tax crime charges in New
Weisselberg.
York. Charges against the Trump Organization include conspiracy, grand larceny, and tax fraud. CFO Alan Weisselberg was arraigned one day after a grand jury returned an indictment charging him and the Trump Organization with tax crimes. The 73-year-old Weisselberg has worked for the Trump company for decades. Former President Donald Trump was not charged. It is the first criminal case arising from a 2-year investigation into the Trump Organization by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I'm Mike Rossio.
In Surfside, Florida,
What you're doing here is incredible.
President Biden met with first responders and with family members of the missing from the collapse of a condo building last week. Because of structural issues, the search is on hold. The Supreme Court's conservative majority cut back on a landmark voting rights law, upholding voting limits in Arizona that a lower court had found discriminatory under the Federal Voting Rights Act. The AP's Mark Sherman reports the limits are in who can collect ballots put in the mail for someone else and ballots that are cast in the wrong precinct.
The court said that neither of those things is racially discriminatory under the Voting Rights Act. And a lower court had ruled that they were racially discriminatory, that they had disproportionately affected Black, Hispanic, and Native American voters.
A new committee investigating the Capitol riot has a surprise member.
Congresswoman Liz Cheney.
The Wyoming Republican says she's honored to serve on the committee. This is AP News.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
I've already guaranteed this will be my last term. I'm doing this because I want to solve these problems.
Was it problem solving when you blocked COVID relief or when you downplayed the insurrection?
I want to do it because I'm so concerned about the direction of this country. I've got something to offer.
Like becoming a hydroxychloroquine salesman?
I'll go home, smile on my face, realizing I'd left it all on the field.
You must be exhausted.
6 years from now, I'll for sure be going home.
We'll hold you to your word, Senator. Go home.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
So, Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Are all real estate brokers tree huggers?
Crew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yep, I even walk to work.
Come on, always?
Well, sometimes I bike. And if I have an appointment across town, I use my hybrid.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Find them online at solidarityrealty.com. There is an alternative.
Get ready to get local. Saturdays at 11 a.m., Dane by Local and 92.7 FM Devil Radio bring you Let's Get Local, a new program featuring area businesses and nonprofits that make our community unique and special. So tune in Saturdays and go local, Madison.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Yesterday, the Wisconsin State Senate approved the Republican-authored $87.5 billion biennial budget, which will now go before Governor Tony Evers. The governor has 6 days to sign, veto, or make changes to the budget with a line item veto. The GOP passed budget looks very different from the proposal Governor Evers had sent to the legislature back in February. The Joint Finance Committee stripped hundreds of the governor's policy proposals, including expanding Badger Care and investing $1.6 billion in Wisconsin schools. The Wisconsin governor has one of the most powerful line item vetoes in the country, but Governor Evers has floated the potential for a full veto of the budget. Sunny skies in the forecast today, with temperatures expected to get up to around 81 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected to roll in this evening with an overnight low of 55 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a glorious Thursday edition, Dom, with some indictments coming down against the Trump org and the CFO thereof. The Supreme Court dropping a couple of anti-democratic, anti-voting rights rulings. And we got the perfect guest for the moment. He's former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. He's a friend of ours. Jim, thank you so much for coming around today.
I'm glad to be with you once again. Another important day in the history of America.
Thank you, Jim.
It certainly is. Let's start with the Supreme Court rulings, if we could, Jim. Let's start with the Arizona case, the voting rights case in Arizona. The lower courts had ruled that case discriminatory. Effectively, they said that should be taken up under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And then it got to the Supreme Court in the 6-3 conservative supermajority, and they effectively flipped the appeals court, did they not, Jim?
They did, absolutely. And speaking about things that are important in our history, while we're going to talk later on, I'm sure, about some indictments coming out of New York City, I would argue to you that this decision today is long-term more important to the future of our democracy, candidly, and what we're going to anticipate from the Supreme Court down the road. Go back to 2013, Shelby County versus Eric Holder, my former boss. This was the case that put this all in motion. This was the case in which John Roberts basically said, you know what, we're sort of living in a post-racial America. We no longer have to apply those old standards found Section 4, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, a combination of those unconstitutional, and said, you know what, the United States Department of Justice no longer has the authority to do this pre-approval process for many districts across the country, not just in the South, all across the country that have had a history of discrimination in voting. And that was taken away at that time. That's the event that prompted all of these states within hours, candidly, after that opinion was issued, to begin this road of articulating plans and then passing legislation to limit voting rights. It results in what we've seen the past couple of years. And then ultimately today now we're getting back to Section 2, as you indicated, which is the remaining enforcement part of the statute. It does remain, as the Attorney General said earlier this week, but it plainly has taken a big hit today by virtue of what the Supreme Court has said, saying that these two Arizona provisions in the law having to do with how you count votes, how you get votes into the ballot boxes, that those can be sustained, and that they do reject in the end this notion that was found, as you indicated, by the lower courts, that this had an inappropriate impact upon voters of color. Very, very significant and not good in terms of what we can anticipate down the road when other legislative enactments also get before the federal courts.
So, Jim, not only did they overturn the lower court rulings, they also ignored the statistical breakdown of who is affected by these Arizona laws. And it was like twice as likely it was a minority voter affected. And Alito basically ignored that fact, Kagan scathing in her dissent,
Jim, speak to that if you've got a minute.
Absolutely. And again, I would recommend, we haven't advised your listeners to read something, but read the entire opinion, including especially Elena Kagan, who is very serious about this in it's not just an attack. It's not just a what many people regard as a political attack on the other side. This is a very thoughtful analysis. As you said, we talk a lot about the intent of legislation. We talk about the impact of legislation. And as you indicated, clearly a huge impact on people of color in Arizona by virtue of this legislative fiat, if you will. The fact that Alito basically says, well, we're going to dismiss that, not significant, those laws can stand, is a rejection of that fundamental notion that the laws should ensure that people of all colors and of all abilities and disabilities and all the other immutable characteristics that are part of our nation, that everyone has the right to vote if they're qualified to do that. That's a real attack on democracy, if you will. And again, the Kagan dissent I would offer to you is perhaps where you even start with the reading of this opinion, because she really lays out effectively exactly what's wrong. And again, why this is so critically important for America today, as I indicated, when future statutes, and they're happening all around the country, also get to the federal court, say, we're going to look at this, we're going to hear this again. The Supreme Court today on July 1, that case is going to be used as precedent to support other pieces of legislation that are also making their ways under Section 2, not 4 and 5, but under Section 2 into the courts. Underscores once again, what does the United States Congress need to do? And this is the political piece of it, but it's the legislative piece of it. Do the remedy of Shelby versus Shelby County. Do the Shelby fix. Make that happen.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocate radio show. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle joining us via the Zoom. Jim, great to have you once again. Appreciate your time as always. Also coming out of the Supreme Court, on Thursday, today, invalidated a California rule that requires charitable organizations to disclose the names of contributors in a case that could impact the future of dark money politics. Jim, apparently the Supreme Court, again, along a 6-3 conservative liberal line, went down this path. What's your take on this ruling, Jim?
Again, perhaps only slightly less significant than the other case under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. This has to do with that word we use a lot, but it's important to use, transparency, right? We want to know how it is that our government is being affected, how people are having an impact upon our elected officials. This was an attempt by California, frankly, in a fairly narrow area, to identify where the money is coming from. This goes back to Citizens United and all that tradition that followed from that. That is money and how we follow it inside the political process. Basically, the Supreme Court says, nope, you don't have to disclose that. And once again, we are putting a cloak, rather than establishing a transparency, we're putting a cloak on that kind of thing. Americans should know more about what's going on in their elective politics.
Jim, the concept of the traditional charitable contribution, right? Think of the NAACP. And this is different from when those rulings came out back then versus the kind of world we live in now, where you can set up a 501c3 and essentially do electioneering, and skirt a lot of the rules that were originally there. But I can appreciate. I mean, in the case of NAACP, you don't want necessarily retribution to those who would support civil rights and those kinds of things. Is that same concern for the Koch brothers funding Americans for Prosperity? Is that equal because they're 501c3s?
Yeah, again, this is the kind of thing that lawyers spend an awful lot of time and judges spend an awful lot of time parsing out. And I would offer that there can and should be a difference between those things, especially when you get to the issue of elective politics. When you are paying for an impact on voting, you're paying for who is going to end up representing you. That's different from making contributions to things like the environment generally, to racial equality, to law enforcement reform, more broad issues that go to how we conduct our business and our affairs as a nation. The elective piece is more particular. And I think that's why there are an awful lot of people, me included today, find that opinion to be problematic and do distinguish it from other ways in which you can make donations to companies, to entities, nonprofit organizations without having disclosures.
Jim, even if we passed an SB1, even if we could find a means of doing so, there was a McCain-Feingold bill once upon a time that became law, and then it was taken apart brick by brick. Don't you suspect that would be the same, knowing the sentiment of this 6-3 conservative supermajority?
That is the concern, of course, and we talk a lot about precedent. If you pull apart both the decisions that were issued today, you will find an awful lot of language, again, that we're going to hear repeatedly, not just in the weeks, but in months, but also years ahead. The Supreme Court should be, to my mind, a reflection, not necessarily of every contemporary whim, but the way in which we view our fundamental processes, and that's legislative processes, elected processes, the way that business works, the way that healthcare works, education, all those kinds of things. And yes, the Supreme Court does have an awful lot of jurisdiction, if you will, to take a look at things, determine whether or not legislative enactments, as we saw today, are proper or not. That should also be impacted, I would offer, by an analysis that goes to, again, going back to the Arizona situation. What is the impact upon Americans today? How does that impact on us on 2021? That's what I think is missing. It is, as your question indicates, it raises the specter. We're going to see more of this down the road. And today, unfortunately, unlike some recent Supreme Court cases, 9-0, we've got these 6-3 fairly partisan splits in our United States Supreme Court.
Jim, is this the most partisan ruling we've seen from this court since Coney Barrett joined it?
I think that it probably is. As I said at the outset, this matter coming out of Arizona, right down party lines, and the statements made by both the majority and obviously the dissenters make that line very, very clear. And I think you can put this in that category, perhaps at the top of that category, probably the most partisan decision that we have seen. Again, we've seen other things in law enforcement where we've got unanimity. We've got many other issues where we're sort of surprised by how the Supreme Court has issued its opinions. That's not today. And this one, as I say, I think it's at the top of the list.
Jim, perhaps not in this show, but on another show, we'll talk more about the plan to perhaps expand the U.S. Supreme Court. Because if the supermajority of conservatives on the court, the 6-3 majority, if they don't believe in upholding democracy and the Voting Rights Act, Jim, then we got a big problem. It's hard to solve that problem through legislation that they can just turn around and strike down. Come back with us, a fine guest, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. He's still a friend of ours, we hope. At least if you stick around for one more segment at minimum, Jim. More double.
Absolutely.
More James Santelle, more legal rulings, and of course, the main course, the indictment down at the Trump org. A lot of felonies, Jim. Sort of a heavy indictment. Harsh, you might say. And a perp walk to boot. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates.
Judicial system.
I'm not a big fan of righty-whitey talk radio, but if I'm going to tune in even for an hour a day, I really wish they'd have a live host. You know, they've still got a Rush Limbaugh show, and the guy's been dead for a couple months.
Playing like best of Dead Rush.
Do you know how weird that is? I make you this promise. After I'm dead, you don't have to keep playing my sound bites. Although I'm hoping you go first.
The Devil's Advocates, weekdays from 2 to 5.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. Scott Walker tweeting out from a La Quinta in a Rancho del Solio Ronald Reagan fashion shirt.
You know,
only
as a guy
online.
who's wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt, how can you
Mine's
rip on
bootleg.
a guy for wearing a Ronald Reagan shirt?
Buddy, I got a Bernie bootleg on. This is cool on so many levels. You don't even know how cool I am.
I do not. If it could just be a little tighter.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class.
Time was drifting.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you missed any of this fine program, and why would you? You can always go to devilradio927.com. You can listen to and download podcasts and interviews.
And Dominic, we have the finest of guests, the legal eagle sorts. James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, friend of ours. Jim, thanks for sticking around. May keep you one more segment, but before we get greedy, let's get to the main course. The prosecutors effectively, at least in my opinion, Jim, kind of threw the kitchen sink at Weisselberg and the Trump org. Did you get that impression as well?
Absolutely. And I know there's some commentary already out there talking about, well, this isn't significant. And playing the last couple of days, defense counsel said, nothing big to look at here. I have just the opposite view, and it's your view as well. This is, as the prosecution said, this is sweeping and audacious, right? Two adjectives, a tax avoidance scheme. I have three big takeaways. One of them is that this is the Trump organization writ large. This is not a subset, not a subsidiary. This is Trump. This is the brand of our now former president. This is going after the company, and that's no small thing. That's a very important part of this. Second, as you also just indicated, we've got 15 counts, but more important, 15 years of this kind of activity. Not 15 months, not 15 weeks, 15 years of a tax avoidance scheme, tax fraud, false statements, false business practices, false records, and it goes on, basically charging the same kinds of things different ways, but again, very, very broadly, chronologically, alleging all of this misconduct inside the Trump organization. And the third thing, which I think is especially interesting, is this is not the end. There's already a lot of focus on an unindicted co-conspirator and other executives who's out there. And there's been some recent commentary that may not, in fact, be Donald Trump. But plainly, there are other people involved in this, which has great consequences for what happens next. So again, sweeping, important, and not to be dismissed, as defense counsel has done already, both as to Alan Weisselberg, lots of exposure here, and the corporation as well. This is how corporations die, candidly, with this kind of not only bad press, but criminal prosecution and perhaps conviction as well.
Well, Jim, you've got Weisselberg's former daughter-in-law cooperating with the investigators, my understanding, and at least some of the articles, the reporting I've read, one of the unindicted co-conspirators at this point is probably Weisselberg's son, be it Barry or the other one, that were running the cash-only ice rink and also getting the benefit of either a hugely subsidized apartment on Central Park South or the free apartment over on 61st Street in Manhattan. Either way, that is truly a financial benefit. Do you think that this is to basically say, Weisselberg, you can either flip on the boss, or hell, we're going to turn around and charge not just you, but probably also your family? And the wife had the Mercedes-Benz lease. She's wrapped up in this as well, Jim.
Absolutely. And the answer is, again, yes and yes. Plainly, we've talked for a long period of time about the fact that the DA, Cy Vance, has been focused on Weisselberg as sort of this conduit to explain all the documents, the transactions, be like the Michael Cohen inside the Trump organization. He has resisted that. This is, as some people have said, calling his bluff. This is the direct litigation prosecution shot at Weisselberg to say, we're serious about this. And you can come forth now and begin to cooperate with us. You can work with us, or you can go down this road. So as to him, absolutely. Family members, other people inside the Trump organization, all of them should be looking at this today and seeing some future exposure, wondering whether they want to be on the side of the prosecution or perhaps on the side of conviction and potentially imprisonment, depending upon how this plays out. So I think it's plainly a very wise and thoughtful strategic move by Cyrus Vance. It is not the end, not only because he's said just that, as has the Attorney General of the state of New York, but remember too that Cy Vance has filed a number of pleadings talking about bank fraud, insurance fraud, misvaluing properties. That's not inside this indictment. So there's more that they're looking at. And again, just like it was during the course of our discussions about Mueller investigation, when we had the Manafort and Gates indictments, and then Papadopoulos and Vanderswan, and then the Russians, we had all these series of indictments. I think this is the first of others to come. This is the beginning of the beginning. This is not the end by any means.
So we've got the indictment of the CFO and perhaps the unindicted co-conspirator that is the CFO's son, Weisselberg's son, but Trump not mentioned, not by name in these indictments, Jim. But Trump apparently, reportedly, according to ABC News, was watching the courtroom scene. And my understanding is these indictments dropped last night. Weisselberg turned himself over this morning, and there weren't masses of media, only one New York Times photographer. So you think, well, maybe the prosecutor's taking it easy, maybe still hoping to garner cooperation out of Weisselberg, but then they kind of perp walked his ass in the court, Jim. They had him wearing handcuffs. What was your interpretation? Was that for the benefit, not just of Weisselberg, but perhaps Trump?
We'd like to think, and I do think, that prosecutors have good intent in doing what they do, bringing charges when they should bring charges, and not specifically playing to those lower, baser sentiments and sort of inclinations of all of us, but, including a former president. But in this circumstance, again, he surrenders himself. Was that appropriate to have him brought into the courtroom in custody? Absolutely. Even for a white-collar criminal, he is released now on a PR bond. That image is also intent to do something that prosecution should do, which is deter conduct. If you engage in this sort of thing, this is the kind of thing that you will see. This is what will happen to you. Maybe it's to an audience of one in Florida, or maybe in New Jersey now, but it certainly is to America as well.
Jim, he may have been released on his recognizance, talking about Weisselberg, but he did lose his passport. No weekend trips to Cancun with the Cruz family. Jim, I hope you got more time for us, because I got more questions for you, sir. Come back. The Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a Thursday afternoon edition. Former U.S. Attorney James Santelle, our fine guest. We'll be right back.
Was that wrong? Should I not have done that? I tell you, I gotta plead ignorance on this thing, because if anyone had said anything to me at all when I first started here, that sort of thing was frowned upon.
This is the radio station you were looking for. Devil Radio 92.7. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the world together.
Help me, Devil Radio. You're my only hope.
At Chad's Design Build, our tagline is building a better world, one remodeled home at a time. Simply stated, we want to be a part of the solution to leave the world better than we found it. That's why we've invested in a 20 kilowatt solar array, which provides over 90% of our electrical demand at our shop, office, and design studio. And that's why we invest in local causes which provide opportunities and which confront structural inequality. At Chad's Design Build, we are proud to partner with you, building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
It's the 4th of July special pricing at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Listen to this.
E-bikes are just $844. E-bikes with a 30-mile range, just $844.
E-bikes with a 2-year warranty, just $844. 7-speed e-bikes, just $844.
You gotta see this e-bike. 3 power levels now, just $844.
For 3 days only until 3 p.m., 4th of July.
No one's got a bigger selection, and we have the lowest prices in the nation. Crazy Lenny's e-bikes.
Update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished higher, the Dow up 131 points. The government says the number of people filing claims for unemployment last week reached a new pandemic low. White House coronavirus response coordinator Jeff Zients is worried about the spread of the Delta variant.
The Delta variant is a threat to unvaccinated Americans and to communities with low vaccination rates. And the best way for communities to protect themselves from the virus is by getting more people vaccinated.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says for the most part, the government is not mandating mask wearing.
There's a degree of flexibility. People at the local level, depending upon the on-ground situation, will make recommendations or not according to the local situation. But the broad recommendation that the CDC makes based on the high degree of effectiveness of the vaccine remains unchanged.
Infections in the UK reached the highest level today since the end of January. I'm Ed Donahue.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Over objections by Attorney General Josh Kaul, Governor Tony Evers signed a bill passed by the Republican legislature that outlines how settlement funds would be divided between the state and local governments in the potential opioid lawsuit Wisconsin is a part of. AG Kaul's objections to the bill were the increase of control the Budget Committee receives and the absence of a cap on attorney's fees. Governor Evers said he did not want to veto the entire bill despite its flaws because he did not want to put at risk Wisconsin receiving the maximum settlement dollars for those harmed through the opioid crisis. The Dane County Jail redevelopment is expected to be delayed once again and may require a complete redesign due to the skyrocketing cost of construction. The county is asking the city of Madison to reconsider the $148 million project in September rather than this week. You're listening to Devil Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
As soon as my routine audit's finished, I'll release my returns. I'll be very proud to.
This is a thing I've never known before. It's called easy living.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a fine guest. He is former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. Jim, thank you for the generosity of your time and your spirit. Having a good time talking about the indictments of the Trump organization and the CFO thereof.
Jim, I want to get, maybe drill down a little bit on both of these. 15 felony counts to Weisselberg. Reporting we've read says up to 105 years imprisonment if convicted on all counts. Now that seems like a lot of pressure to me, Jim. But presumably no one gets convicted on everything all the time, right? What's your experience when you see something like this? If we assume that Weisselberg does not cooperate, right? How do you think this, if he's found guilty, would he? I know it's a lot of guessing here, Jim, but what are the odds of him serving 105 years?
Highly unlikely. You're absolutely right. And again, we do those kinds of things, and the media in particular does them because it sounds very dramatic to say that. But just like we saw in the Derek Chauvin matter, when you add up all the counts for which he was convicted, you get a very high number. Plainly, that's not what the appropriate sentence should be. Class C felonies in New York, frankly, anywhere from probation to 15 years. All these kinds of things have an impact upon what could happen here. Let's assume that he is either convicted after a jury trial or should plead guilty, which is probably unlikely unless he is cooperating. But again, all kinds of things factor into this. He is the chief financial officer for an organization, this entity that has 3,500 employees. He plainly has been there for a very long period of time, for 48 years or so. He knows what's going on. This is not a low-level functionary. And so you can impute to him an awful lot of intent and knowledge about what's happening. Notice also that the indictments here talk about these ledgers that Cy Vance has, ledgers where they actually kept track of sort of this payoff, if you will, between actual payments of salary and the benefits for all sorts of things like rent and cars and those kinds of things. This was a scheme of very elaborate dimension. And it's impossible to believe, if anything in the indictment is close to being true, that Weisselberg did not know about that. That has an impact, too, upon the kind of sentence he may serve down the road. On the other hand, he's 73 years old. He's not a young man anymore. But in the end, again, we've seen others who have engaged in fraud of this kind. He plainly, as we know, the allegation is that he was receiving more than $1.7 million in off-the-book compensation. That's a lot of money for, I think, virtually almost all Americans. And so, again, if you stand in front of a judge, you may, in fact, find yourself in prison, even for a small period of time. Your reputation is destroyed, your communication, your lifeblood right now with this entity is also terminated. He faces some serious results as in the wake of any kind of conviction here. Absolutely.
Well, and it wasn't just the lack of paying taxes on, actual compensation received. It was, applying and receiving basically tax credits. Is that the grand larceny charge, Jim? And what kind of sentence would that hold? You view that one differently than just these other fraud cases or tax?
Yeah, that's the core of it. And again, in the federal system, we've got a bank fraud charge. In New York, they do not have something formally named that. So they do in fact have this grand larceny in the second degree, which is basically the same kind of thing. Lawyers' words for different kinds of same kind of conduct. And again, that's the big one for him. Again, bringing into the court the intent that he had. Grand larceny, those words have meaning. You're stealing money of large amounts. And again, depending upon how guidelines may play out, again, he will not go to jail for 20 years for doing this. But he does have some significant exposure here. And again, as I said, beyond that, his family, as we've talked before, a family may be brought along with this. This is not the last of the indictments coming forth. I would offer to you more broadly, too, that this corporation which he's been affiliated for most of his career, this is the beginning of the end of that. And so
that's my next point then, Jim. So the corporation itself apparently has 10 felony counts against that. And you brought this up, and I guess want to go there next. So what specifically, where do you see the greatest exposure for the Trump organization? I guess given, their book of business, let's call it, I look at them as being perhaps highly leveraged in real estate. What would a conviction of fraud of 1 or up to 10 counts for the organization, what would be the biggest exposure points for them?
Sure, you've got both legal exposure and then you've got that extrajudicial exposure, right? The legal side, of course, is corporate. You can't throw a corporation in jail, right? You can't do that. But can you fine a corporation sometimes within inches of its life? We recall very well that, remember, BP in the wake of the Deepwater Horizon drilling disaster, 11 people killed, pled guilty to manslaughter and suffered a huge amount of criminal fines for that. Other things, Arthur Anderson, our nation's history. So you can impose a significant financial impact upon a corporation, other prohibitions on its ability to do its work that can basically bring it to its knees. And that, again, it can be a part of the sentence here. That is much related to the extrajudicial piece of this too. If you are a convicted corporation, banks, insurance companies, other entities out there, they're not going to be inclined necessarily to engage with you much further and grant you loans and do those other kinds of things that business people do. That gets shut off. That's the other lifeblood of the organization that also brings it to its knees. So the very impact, even without the judicial sentence that might happen here, a conviction of a corporation for felonies in the state of New York carries with it some very, very significant commercial impacts that Donald Trump has got to be thinking about as well. And beyond that, we're also concerned about those 3,500 employees around the world who are just doing their jobs, not at the top level. Those executives who may have benefited from this, we're less concerned about them, but the corporation itself is supported by them. And if it goes away, it's brought to its knees, it finishes, those people are out of work. And that's catastrophic. Again, underscoring the significance of what's happened today.
It's hard to feel bad for anyone that would choose to work for the Trump org. There are other employers, or so I hear. Trump's attorney, or the Trump org attorney, Fischetti, is calling this purely political. Here's a direct statement. In my 50 years of practice, I have never seen this office bring a case like this, and quite frankly, I am astonished. The district attorney is supposed to be apolitical, but everyone knows the only reason they're proceeding with this case is because it is Trump. Jim, I know they do a little posturing in the press. Is this the day for that sort of posturing? When there are 10 criminal indictments against the organization, the CFO is doing a perp walk, and of course, the big boss is yet to be charged. Is that the day for posturing, Jim?
I would offer to it's not. Unfortunately, we see that a lot, regrettably, in America of 21st century, even the 20th century. Note also that in those comments by a defense counsel, there wasn't a full-throated denial, right? This was, well, the charges are insignificant. This is political. That's what's motivating this. How much more effective would it have been for him to come out and say, you know what, the DA is wrong. This didn't happen. We will show that those ledgers that are described in the indictment so compellingly are in fact not real, that they're not truthful, that somehow you've misunderstood them. That's not what he said. And again, I note that with some significance. And I will also say that to the extent that he was saying, in his experience, well, we all have experiences. None of those is dispositive in the court of law. In the federal system, are corporations indicted all the time? Yes, during my tenure as an assistant U.S. attorney, we indicted corporations along with individuals. This is not an atypical thing to happen. And the fact that it happens to have the name of Donald Trump, our former president, on it, is that significant? Sure, and that's why we're talking about it. But that doesn't mean that the prosecution itself is illegitimate, especially with the specificity that's set forth in this indictment, the breadth of it, the strength of it. I think the compelling nature of the evidence is going to show that this corporation did in fact engage in this kind of nefarious conduct.
Jim, at least as television and the movies portray it, a criminal enterprise always goes down after they find the real ledgers. Then, that seems to be all the evidence they need. So let me ask you, you got the real ledgers, and presumably the big boss of the Trump organization, and maybe even the princes and princess of the Trump org, are probably well aware if this alleged criminal enterprise is going on. One must assume 48 years into his employment, the boss is aware that Weisselberg's cooking the books because he probably instructed him to do so. Would the instruction of the CFO or anyone else to pay themselves in this unfair sort of fashion, unfair, legally, criminally unfair sort of fashion, would that imply criminality on the person making the directive? I mean, I thought Trump was guilty of paying off a porn star, but only the guy that actually handed over the check has gone to prison. If Trump directed Weisselberg, does that create criminality for Trump?
Absolutely, it could. Again, with that kind of linchpin testimony, and again, your invocation of Michael Cohen with the hush money is perfect, right? Because Michael Cohen, we have the checks. We have the checks again signed by Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. Michael Cohen provides the glue, and he says, I was instructed to execute these checks, to deliver them. And again, it is a curiosity to this day about why it is either the federal government, state government has not prosecuted that particular aspect of all of this. Hopefully that will come down the road. To answer your question in this context, yes, if you are the one who is directing another individual to engage in criminal conduct, That is what is described in the indictment. That's a conspiracy. That is being substantively, you are as much exposed, if not more. If you're the source of the conduct, you have got the same kind of exposure. Note again, this is a criminal conspiracy. Note again that it speaks about other individuals, as we've already spoken about, and there is more to come here. So Donald Trump's got to be looking at all this. He's also got to know that those subpoenas that were the subject of so much focus, they produced tax returns beyond just the ledgers, and those are sitting there, and other documents, other internal documents. All of that is sitting in Cy Vance's office, presumably waiting for some future charges of other individuals down the road.
You know, Jim, my only regret is with the pending disbarment of Rudy Giuliani. We won't get to see Rudy out there making, public disclaimers on behalf of the former boss. I'll let Dom take one more.
If I can jump in here, Jim. Now, again, this isn't just Vance, right? This was the super grand jury meeting, 3 days a week for like 6 months. I'm not clear. How many people are in the grand jury? Do we know this, Jim? And is it a super majority? Is it unanimous? What is the number for the grand jury to come down to agree to these indictments?
Sure. You just need a majority of the grand jury. And again, I will go back and check on this. In the federal system, it's 26 people. You just need a simple majority to do that. I'm sure it's the same in New York. The numbers may be a little bit different. Special grand jury, as you said, convened and meeting regularly, continuing to meet. They've not been disbanded. This is not a situation where their work is now done and they've gone off. They will continue to meet for the rest of this calendar year. Again, the reason why this comes out today, why? Because this particular part of the investigation, from my perspective, is complete. And at that time, a prosecution should go forward. Plainly has the additional impact of having this additional pressure on Weisselberg to get him to cooperate in those future cases. But the grand jury continues its work. And again, as I said before, not only has the opportunity to hear from witnesses, but it's also presented with all the documents, much beyond what we've seen in this indictment.
Jim, quickly, did the statute of limitations come into this decision today, do you think?
It plainly, the answer is, in a conspiracy, you can reach back. The significant thing there is it says this conspiracy lasted until yesterday, right? Until June 30th. So you can go back and go 15 years forward. Your substantive counts have got to be within the statute, but the answer to that question is not on the way this particular case has been charged, and probably not as future cases will be charged. Lots of conspiratorial conduct, lots of aiding and abetting going on here too. So we'll see a lot of that down the road.
Yes or no, will Trump be indicted by this grand jury?
I can't imagine that with the kinds of things we're seeing that will not happen at some point. And again, I go back to that election situation.
I put you down for a yes. We're out of time. Come back for Devils. Thank you, James Santelle.
Always good to be with you.
Thanks, Jim.
Get the son.
I can handle things. I'm smart.
Lock him up. Lock up the son. Don't forget about the son. The kid gives me the creeps.
If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
Please be done.
over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join MoveOn's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
The Devil's Advocates.
There are lots of people that haven't made up their mind on this race, and you think, how could that be? No, there are. There are a lot of people that could still make a decision all the way on election day down.
Undecided voters are the biggest idiots on the planet. Try giving short, simple answers.
Like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. Yosemites, Yosemites.
Because freedom. The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
You're going to be dead.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open for your take today at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest, a fine one indeed, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle, friend of ours. I know the people were sitting at the edge of their seats.
Oh, man, I love me some Jim.
Well, we all do. The audience does as well. And now is your time to react. America, dial now, 844-967-2789. I perceive this as a good news day.
It's a great news day.
The beginning of the end.
We've been waiting on indictments for to come down for years. Years we've been waiting for this. And today is that day. And I got to tell you, man, although it's great, I want more. I want more, man. You know, I want more. I want to see more action. I want to see more arrests. I want to see them flip this cat over, Weisselberg. I want to see them bringing in the kids. I want to see Trump under oath. I want charges.
What about Don Jr.? What about Eric, Ivanka, hell, Tiffany, Melania? Are they all complicit, Don?
Well, they're all drawing checks from the same organization that's just got 10 felony counts, a fraud attached to it. So, presumably Weisselberg wasn't the only one taking advantage of this, corrupted scheme. I mean, if you can bury, $1.7 million in income over the last 10 or 15 years, you think he's the only one doing it? And if he was, would he be the
apple? One bad apple.
Yeah. Then why is he still employed? Right now, in 10 minutes from now, 10 days from now, is Weisselberg still employed? Because if that was my CFO and that was my company and he's been hustling like that without my permission, you're out, man. I wouldn't be using my attorneys to defend him. I wouldn't be having him under my corporate umbrella as an employee for 1 second longer. This scheme went up until yesterday on or about June 30th of 2021.
The son, also. You got to get the son.
We'll see about the sons and daughter. The legal and political dangers facing President Trump became a lot more real Thursday when his closest lieutenant in running his business, Alan Weisselberg, gave himself up to prosecutors at dawn. Weisselberg, along with the Trump Organization, was reportedly indicted the previous day. The charges are said to involve the alleged shielding of fringe benefits from appropriate taxation. And I suspect worse, much depends on the exact nature of the allegations and the evidence that prosecutors, led by my Manhattan DA, Cyrus Vance, have uncovered to support them. The political world is abuzz about the indictments being unsealed, something that is expected to happen within hours. Oh, we've seen them now. We can already see the contours of the gravest dangers facing Trump, as well as a silver lining or two that should caution his enemies against premature triumphalism. See how they did that? Sort of a play off Trump. The biggest worry for Trump, without question, is the possibility that Weisselberg will flip and assist prosecutors against his boss. I think that's a legitimate fear, Dom. Weisselberg has served the Trump family for close to half a century, having worked for the former president's late father, Fred Trump. Most of the former president's associates, from loyalists like Corey Lewandowski to friends turned foes like Michael Cohen, have attested to Weisselberg's granular knowledge of the business. And Weisselberg... Granular. Weisselberg has resisted all overtures to... I'm sorry, man, I got heartburn. To turn so far. I think it's all the rum I drank with you earlier in the week. Despite Vance's team putting serious pressure on him to do so.
Oh, there's serious pressure. 15 felony counts, 105 years if convicted on all accounts. And as mentioned, he's not going to do 105 years. Got that. But at 73, do you want to risk doing 10 or even 8 or even 2?
Time off for good behavior? Conjugal visits? I bet you Trump's got a little heartburn himself today. What do you think?
I bet he does.
Always gone.
844-967-2789. Let's get to the phones and the patient like Dave on the road. Dave, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dave.
Hi, guys. I have one question. What about their wealth? So they made all this illegal wealth. Can we take it back?
Well, the taxation part not paid, or at least allegedly not paid, that would be subject to forfeiture. I mean, man, you cross the IRS, they can seize accounts.
Right. And then throw on their penalties and interest. But no, I mean, they generate their revenue as the Trump organization, presumably through legitimate means, right? Otherwise, we'd see some more of those kinds of charges. We haven't seen that.
Selling condos to Russian oligarchs for inflated values in cash.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Legitimate
real estate,
stuff.
Dave.
Well, I just want to put more pain to them, like the wife with the Mercedes-Benz take the car away.
Well, that's an illegal inducement, apparently not taxed. Well, I would think the IRS should be able to seize that Mercedes-Benz.
Well, it certainly should be able to seize the tax owed, plus penalties and interest. And I haven't done the calculations of penalties and interest, but if you owe the IRS $500,000 for 15 years, I'm pretty sure it's more than $500,000 you owe the IRS.
Do you think Optima Tax Relief is going to help him out or advocate for him?
Quicken. You think he uses TurboTax? And do you think if they do seize the Mercedes-Benz, will they be able to use it for whatever purpose they intend? Maybe for Hunter Biden to tool around him.
844-967-2789. Mark from the SEC, you are up. Welcome, sir. What do you got?
Hey, Mark.
Well, hey guys, flip Weitzelberg like a pancake on the griddle. I mean,
absolutely.
Toast them nice and brown on both sides. And for the Supreme Court, those guys in the Supreme Court that did this latest decision, maybe they shouldn't get served in any restaurant they go to, in Washington, D.C. or the surrounding community. Just say, we don't serve your kind in here, and it's not prejudice for us to ask you to leave. It's got nothing to do with the color of your skin or your racial or your ethnic background. It's just the fact that you're evil SOBs, and please leave.
We don't serve
and in Arizona here. And maybe in Arizona, this is a little colorful, and maybe, if some of these Republicans down there are driving across the Apache reservation, they get pulled over by the Apache police, they just get taken out in the desert and get issued some of the punishments, that our more colorful literature has exposed us to, like take out over an anthill.
Take him over an anthill.
I like that as a possible remedy, but perhaps a little punitive for tax fraud. But we do have a brand new statement from the former president of the United States to the people. See the radical left prosecutors and what they're trying to do to 75 million plus voters and patriots. For what is it? Question mark. For what is it?
Wow, man.
Statement by the former president in the face of prosecution against his organization and his CFO, and one must assume, because we heard Jim Santelle sort of agree to it, indictments of Trump coming soon. That would be a happy hour.
I think that the son is the mastermind. There's a devilish look in his eyes, and I don't like it.
The best is yet to come.
The kid gives me the creeps.
Hey, Dom, is your carpeting starting to have a little bit of a funk to it?
That's a bit of a personal question, Crudy.
No, I know this is really busy time for one of our sponsors, Zero Res of Madison. People want a cleaner, healthier home.
You mean spending the entire quarantine locked in with bacteria and allergens isn't healthy? Who knew?
You want to get it professionally cleaned well before it gets funky. Even if you vacuum frequently,
I vacuum a lot.
You still need to get it professionally cleaned. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at ZeroResMadison.com. Tell them the Devil's Advocate sent you.
Hey there, my name is Kirk Bankstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company. I teamed up with Kristen Bry, the hilarious creator of As Goes Wisconsin, and Pat Kreitlow, the managing director of Up North News, to create the Up North podcast. We're going to talk about Wisconsin news and culture through the eyes of northern Wisconsinites, but also through our progressive viewpoints in the heart of one of the reddest parts of our state. We'll be doing our show live at Devil Radio 92.7 on Wednesday nights at 7, and you can check the podcast out at upnorthpodcast.com.
Won't you let me die?
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. Donald Trump's company and its longtime finance chief are charged with taking part in a tax fraud scheme. The AP's Mike Gracia reports the pleas in court were not guilty.
The Manhattan District Attorney's Office unveiled charges against former President Donald Trump's company Thursday, charging the Trump Organization and its finance chief in what prosecutor Carrie Dunn termed a sweeping and audacious tax fraud scheme. According to prosecutors, Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg allegedly received more than $1.7 million in off-the-books compensation that included apartment rent, car payments, and school tuition. Trump Organization attorney Alan Futerfas had a different take.
I believe the political forces driving today's events are just that.
The Trump Organization and CFO Weisselberg pleaded not guilty. Former President Donald Trump was not charged at this stage of the investigation. I'm Mike Gracia.
President Biden says the government will pay 100% of the cost of search and rescue for the first 30 days in Surfside, Florida. The search for the missing is on hold there from last week's collapse of a condo building. There are worries about the stability of the remaining structure. The president spoke to families of the missing.
They're praying and pleading that God, let there be a miracle. Let there be something happen for me that's good.
President Biden also talked about coordination from Florida's Republican governor and senators.
There's no disagreement, no bickering. Everybody's on the same team. It's what America's all about.
A judge in Wisconsin ordered the release of a woman convicted of stabbing her classmate to please the Slender Man character in 2014, saying she's no longer a threat to anyone. The Los Angeles City Council passed an anti-camping measure that will severely limit widespread homeless encampments that have become an eyesore across Los Angeles. Stocks finished higher today on Wall Street. This is AP News.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
Ugh, my stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Chad's Design Build is proud to sponsor the Summer of Love on Devil Radio. We are committed to our community to demand better for each and every person. Doing the right thing isn't necessarily easy or inexpensive, but when we take the time to listen and learn, we can build a better community. Thoughtful remodeling is a lot like building an effective, progressive coalition. It takes patience, intelligence, and love. Experience helps too. Thank you, Joe Biden, and thank you, Devil Radio. On behalf of Chad's Design Build, here's to the Summer of Love.
Welcome to Family Feud on Max Inc. Radio. I'm your host, Rob Roberts. Rocker, we asked 100 Madisonians, what is the favorite part of Max Inc. Radio?
Oh, that's easy, Rob. Live music performed in the Devil's Lair every Saturday night.
The survey says, number 2. So close, Rocker. Jimmy K, for the win. What is your favorite part of Max Inc. Radio?
Local music.
That's right, Jimmy. Listen to local music every Saturday from 6 p.m. to midnight on Devil Radio 92.7 FM.
Do you want to make the most of your wealth so you can live the life you want to lead? Hi, I'm Sue Peck, a CFP professional with Evolution Financial. I'm a local, independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisor. When you choose Evolution Financial to manage your wealth, you're gaining a partner who will listen to your goals and guide you with your best interests in mind. Let's create the world you want to leave for future generations. Contact me at Evolution Financial by searching online for Evolution Financial Madison.
Evolution Financial is a registered investment advisor with the state of Wisconsin.
Maybe you need a more muscular voice on talk radio. Maybe you need Matt Flynn direct. In the lame duck session, the Republican gerrymandered legislature said that basically they were going to take Evers and Josh Paul's powers away. And a Republican Supreme Court upheld them. And really, contrary to Wisconsin democracy.
Listen to Matt Flynn Direct every weekday from 6 to 8 a.m. only on Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. On Wednesday, a Dane County Circuit Court ruled that the Wisconsin State Assembly violated the state's open records law when refusing and delaying the release of sexual harassment claims involving a former state lawmaker. The court ruled the Assembly must provide the records without redactions in the next 5 days unless the decision is appealed. Yesterday, Governor Tony Evers vetoed a bill that would have barred local governments from accepting private donations to help run elections in the future. During the pandemic, the Center for Tech and Civic Life donated private funds to assist 200 communities around the state in administering their elections. Sunny skies in the forecast today, with temperatures expected to get up to around 81 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected to roll in this evening with an overnight low of 55 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the Thursday 4 o'clock happy hour. But a little sad news out of the sports world. Buck Star, the Greek freak, he's been ruled out for Game 5, Dom. Bad knee.
Giannis hyperextended his knee. No permanent damage, but he will not play today. Crudy, the iOdds app tells me this line is Bucks by 3.
Bucks by 3 without the MVP?
At home, yes.
I might bet against the Bucks tonight.
Oh, I'll take that action.
Not that I want to bet against the home team. You know, I'm not a big fan. I'm just saying, were I a betting man, Dom, I might bet against the Bucks tonight. Missing the MVP, favored? That seems like a logical bet to make.
Come on, man. What are you talking about? The Bucks still have some great other player. Middleton, man, and he's solid. I mean, he came back. He helped them get to Game 3. I know the Bucks lost the last one, but Middleton is solid. He's a star in his own right. And I'm not clear if the Hawks have their guy starting today as well. I know he's been injured as well.
Trae Young.
Yeah, Young.
I've been hearing my kids say Bucks in 6. I'm going to go home and ask him, you still so convinced? Because I might take that wager. Dominic, what I didn't see coming down the pike today, Governor Tony Evers apparently has decided to allow pari-mutuel sports betting in the state of Wisconsin. I did not see that one coming. You can't get legal weed here, but I can go bet on the Bucks game.
Vegas, baby, Vegas!
The Oneida Nation would be the first in Wisconsin to offer legal sports betting. I know there's a little illegal sports betting going on, I would say, for 15 years or more, Dom, because I used to have a bookie. The Oneida Nation, first in Wisconsin to offer legal sports betting under a new deal with the state. Evers says. Wonder what that deal looks like. The Oneida Nation hopes to become the first in Wisconsin to legally offer sports betting under a compact amendment signed Thursday by Governor Tony Evers and Tribe Chairman Hill. The agreement would be the first to allow event wagering, which would include sports betting in Wisconsin, Evers' office said. Event wager. You know, like I bet $50 the Schmales kid picks his nose.
Bet you 50 more he eats it.
Event wagering, as defined by the Compact Amendment, can include betting on sports and events such as nationally televised award shows, professional sports league drafts, and professional sporting events, including football, basketball, and baseball. It does not allow wagering on Wisconsin college athletics, events involving children, or the outcomes of elections for public office.
Well, and fine with the children, but why not Wisconsin college athletics, and why not the outcomes of elections for public office?
Wisconsin athletics, you don't allow them to bet on the home team effectively. You don't want some shoeless Joe Jackson kind of stuff going on. You don't want the college kids to be unduly influenced by some gambling syndicate that would want someone to throw the game. They don't allow betting on UNLV games in Vegas. Why would they allow betting on Badger games?
Well, I can bet on Badger games in Vegas, right?
Well, presumably the mobsters aren't flying to Madison.
If I want to make a bet on the Badger game in the state of Wisconsin, I can go find a bookie to take that action.
Sure.
I could go call it into Vegas, man. I could do an online app. I mean, while I'm
you
down
could FanDuel for all I care
what
down.
I'm saying. What? Why?
I can understand the logic of that, even if, it seems to.
But it doesn't stop. What are you talking about? It doesn't stop it from gambling. I mean, it doesn't stop.
Should we
from
be
on
able
the
to
game.
bet on my kid's little league game as well, Dom?
If you want to take the action, Crudy, I'll bet on your kid's little league game.
Yeah,
because they're going to do it. Here's the point: they're going to do it anyway. If someone's so inclined to do it, you're
betting
still
on
gonna
my
do
kid's
it.
little league game. You think that's a good wager? You think that's happening across the state and somehow?
I'm not saying that it is or isn't. I'm just saying if I want to do so, I should be able to do so. That's my point.
But
if you and I agree as
if you
adults to put money on your kids' little league game, and get their kids whatever, but certainly college. I mean, these are adults. This is an adult game.
They're in their formative years. You don't want a youthful indiscretion to wreck a kid's life.
18 years old, you can get drafted. Are you kidding me? I mean, you pay taxes,
buddy.
You're charged as an adult. I mean, you're 18, you're an adult, man. I don't like to hear about these college kids, quote unquote. They're all adults.
When you can legally have a beer, then you're an adult. You can't even walk into that casino and place a bet on yourself, presumably as an underage kid.
At 18. Yeah.
At 18. Yes. So, no, that's a bad idea. Not betting on the Badgers,
What?
man.
That's terrible.
I'm a Badger fan. I'm a homer, man. I'd be betting on the home team all the time. But, if I saw one of the local kids and, one day we went to our favorite pancake place recently. I think it was yesterday.
Thanks, Jen.
Good. It was good.
That's so good. I love that
Went
place.
to our favorite pancake place in Middleton. But one time I went to the pancake place in Middleton, and there since Frank Kaminsky and another one of the bigs. I forget who it was. Duhei Duhan or whatever his name was. But these guys are both 7-footers, and they're sitting immediately to our right. And Dominic, you were so unobservant. You didn't even notice. I mean, the guy's standing up. He's 7 feet tall.
Well, I didn't notice when they were sitting down. I certainly noticed when they stood up. I mean, they're big fellas.
Well, compared to you sitting down, Frank Kaminsky looked like he was standing up. And any good Badger fan remembers when the Badgers went to Vegas and the lights went out and the Badgers would have won, but not enough time had elapsed in the game when the lights went out. So nobody gets paid. And I'm saying the fix was in that night. Somebody did that on purpose. A lot of Badger money came flowing in that weekend. A lot of Badger fans went to Vegas and dropped the money in the casinos. And somebody didn't want to pay out those bets. And they pulled the light switch.
So someone ran into a power pole and took out the game.
I think so.
So I'm going to be clear here, Curtis. So the adults playing NCAA ball are not mature enough to be, not influenced by gangster gambling influences, but those very young men that are drafted in the Green Bay Packers, well, they're totally matured and they will never throw a game.
Well, they presumably at least have the league minimum salary to rely upon. I mean, you're talking about these college kids. I know Graham Mertz, the Badger quarterback, I know he was on ESPN. They're talking about, as of today, right, the NCAA allows the kids to start licensing their images.
Start generating image and likeness rights. Yes, the NCAA is now allowing those adults, Crudy, they're not kids, stop saying that, to actually profit off of their own image.
It's the first time they've ever been able to make a plum nickel under scholarship.
No, it's unbelievable how long this racket has been going on.
Can you understand a kid who does not get any financial benefit other than perhaps getting his tuition paid and training table? Can you understand where a college kid might be more vulnerable to a $5,000 bribe to miss a couple free throws? A guy who's got the minimum salary in the NBA, a guy that's making $1 million plus, far less likely he's going to throw his professional career away. But I, as a second string backup center, could theoretically foul a couple guys, miss a couple free throws, throw away a ball or two, and potentially change the outcome of the game for relatively
the good
small
news is,
money.
as this is going on, while Evers here in the state of Wisconsin and the Oneida Nation, now presumably other nations as well, allowing this, well, the NCAA allowing for these kids to be paid with their name, likeness, and image now, well, perhaps that concern is allayed a little bit, Crudy.
Maybe, but I still don't think that you should be able to bet on a college basketball game in the state where that game's actually taking place. I'm okay with that aspect of the rule. I mean, I don't know why
like
you
the
don't
home
understand.
team, or like if Vegas hosts the NCAA tournament, they can't take NCAA bets. What do you mean?
I don't think you should be able to go to Vegas and bet on UNLV, and I don't think you should be able to go to the Oneida Casino and bet on UWGB or
but I can
UW
go
Badgers.
to Vegas and bet on the Badgers if I want.
But you understand
okay.
that some local bookie could theoretically.
That's always the case, though, Crudy.
So let's stop allowing pari-mutuel betting on college sports, Tom.
Dude, my buddy who does sports betting all the time, his biggest problem with legalized gambling in Illinois was that he had to transfer his stuff from the Cayman Islands over to Illinois. That was his biggest problem. And let's also remember that the corporate gambling is a huge wrinkle in this situation, because corporate gambling has switched it from individualized games to you make more on the volume. You make more on the more people betting, like things like FanDuel, and you can do stuff on your sports. You can do the 50-50 raffle. If you're anywhere in Chicago, you can do the 50-50 raffle for the game. I mean, you can make $20,000, $30,000 just watching a Cubs game, just as long as you're in the Chicagoland area.
As long as you're not betting on the Cubs, because last time I checked, they were getting swept.
Yeah, they're not doing really well.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game yesterday against the hometown Brewers.
I made a big prediction. I only wish I'd have gone to the Oneida Casino and laid a pari-mutuel bet on the Brewers to sweep the Cubbies. I think I called that one fancy. I don't think that we should allow betting on the college sports that are played here in the state of Wisconsin. I'm a little shocked, or at least mildly surprised, that this issue is coming to the front page today, that Tony Evers would sign off on this. Was Wisconsin screaming for more betting outlets? Do you know the fastest growing radio format right now is betting channels, telling you who you should bet on. The tout radio station.
Lock of the week tonight. You heard it here first. The Devil's Advocates radio show. The hometown Milwaukee Bucks. Lock of the week. Take it to the bank. Are going to win by more than 3.
If I can't bet on political elections, Tom, then what good is it? I got 3-2 against you, running against Alberta Darling. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Your phone calls always welcome here. 844-967-2789.
$50 the Swales kid picks his nose.
Gambling is illegal at Bushwood, sir.
$50 more says eats.
It's the 4th of July special pricing at Crazy Lenny's e-bikes. Listen to this.
E-bikes are just $844. E-bikes with a 30-mile range, just $844. E-bikes with a 2-year warranty, just $844. 7-speed e-bikes, just $844.
You gotta see this e-bike. 3 power levels now, just $844.
For 3 days only until 3 p.m., 4th of July.
No one's got a bigger selection, and we have the lowest prices in the nation. Crazy Lenny's e-bikes.
This is Rocker. I'm sitting on the patio at Salvatore's Tomato Pies on East Wash, and I'm enjoying a floral-forward Manhattan called As Long as There's Whiskey. It features Rocker Rye whiskey with a hint of blueberry, a touch of smoky Amaro, and it's finished off with St. Germain. It's a Rocker Rye Manhattan at Sal's Tomato Pies on Livingston. Ask for it by name, As Long as There's Whiskey. You can also enjoy Rocker Spirits at the Wisco and Tiny's Tap on Willie Street. You must be 21. Please drink responsibly.
Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County need your help. Our annual bike event is scheduled for July 17th. We need hundreds of individual riders and donors to encourage participation in pledges. We will be giving away 2 Crazy Lenny electric bikes, 1 e-bike for a participant and 1 for individual that pledges to support a rider. Come ride for the Boys and Girls Club or make a pledge at bgcdc.org.
Hey folks, Patrick here from Pegasus Games, here to remind you that we're open for all your at-home gaming needs, both online at pegasusgames.com or in-store from noon to 6, with extended hours on Saturday and Sunday morning from 10 a.m. to noon for high-risk customers. From our new line of puzzles to pass the time, to the perfect board game to reconnect with family and friends. Walk-ins welcome or curbside pickup available over the phone or online at pegasusgames.com. Pegasus Games, home to games you never outgrow.
Devil Radio, your fix for progressive news talk from Verona to Sun Prairie. Always streaming at DARNWI.com.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
Guard that joint, my friend.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Your calls always welcome here at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I would have placed a losing bet on the engagement level of the audience today. Apparently, they're already in
holiday mode.
Yeah, holiday mode.
Holiday road, baby.
Anyways, 844-96-PARTY. Dial us. Dominic, apparently betting has not intrigued the audience per se, but we've got some breaking news from Daniel Paice. Ron Kind, we saw him on Tuesday at the, I know, man.
Wow, man.
I am suffering from some heartburn. I needed Tums desperately. If you got Tums, bring me a Tums.
Hold her down, big fella. You're all right.
I've been eating Tums since Tuesday night when I saw Ron Kind in lacrosse. And Ron Kind was supposed to be in DC voting on some bills or something important. Legislating, I think they call it. Pardon me. And Ron Kind apparently got a note saying, for COVID reasons, he's going to be absent. Would like to vote via proxy. And the reason is because he was in lacrosse, not drinking with us at Shooters, but having some ice cream at the Pearl with Joe Biden. You're going to have to talk, man.
Yeah, man. You just hold your breath. That's all right. I got this. Bice from the Milwaukee Journal reports, despite being MIA from his day job, Kind was able to get an excused absence because he claimed the pandemic prevented him from attending Monday and Tuesday's floor session in person. Kind was then permitted to vote on 7 bills by proxy with the help of a rep who was present. Among the measures was one to remove all Confederate statues from public display in the U.S. Capitol, and to repeal 2 decades-old authorizations of use of military force in the Middle East. I am unable to physically attend proceedings in the House chamber due to the ongoing health emergency, the La Crosse Democrat wrote in a letter to the clerk for the U.S. House of Representatives. Republicans accuse Kind of abusing, I tell you, the proxy voting system for reasons unrelated to COVID-19. Ron Kind simply doesn't level with the public and is perfectly willing to deny the obvious, said Anna Kelly, a spokeswoman for the state Republican Party. Whether he's claiming to be a moderate while supporting Nancy Pelosi for speaker or claiming a health emergency is causing his absence on the House floor when the entire world knows he's at a campaign stop with the president, Ron Kind just doesn't respect his constituents enough to tell them the truth. But Kind officials pushed back on the criticism, saying Biden was not making a campaign stop in La Crosse, but was an official visit to Kind's hometown. Beyond that, Sharon Abel, Kind's communications director, also tried to make the case that Biden and Kind did discuss issues related to the coronavirus. Kind used this opportunity to talk to the president about the impact the ongoing pandemic has had on Wisconsin and how the recovery efforts are helping. He also had the opportunity to discuss with the president directly ways we can increase vaccination rates in Wisconsin.
I mostly heard Ron Kind telling Joe Biden where he could find the menu at the Pearl. Sir, up there. They've got the ice cream flavors up there, sir. I didn't hear much talk about the coronavirus pandemic. Perhaps in this rare case, the Republicans make a valid criticism of Ron Kind.
Lawmakers, Crudy, from both parties have come under criticism for taking advantage of the proxy voting system. In February, more than a dozen Republicans were busted for skipping out on votes so they could attend a conservative political action conference. In May, 7 Democrats were called out for using proxies so they could tour a Ford Motor Company plant with the president. Most recently, AOC took heat from her GOP colleagues for casting votes by proxy while campaigning for a mayoral candidate shortly before last month's New York election. Yeah, I mean, sure, but if you got a hall pass and you get the hall pass, you know, he still had his votes. And ultimately, I mean, really, in the world of Zoom and post-pandemic, really, we this is the only way you have to be there to cast your vote. As an elected representative, he couldn't, phone it in. Really? Why is that exactly? And why do we continue to do that? That seems kind of old school, don't you think? I mean, I suppose you got to wear jackets and ties on the floor. I mean, make sure we get our pantyhose on. I mean, this is old school stuff. I mean, we don't have the capabilities to have our representatives vote wherever the hell they're at when the vote comes due, or at least have it be known. They got to be on the floor in the building for that to count. Come on.
What are we paying them for, if not for a little legislating? I mean, sure, you could be absent from work, but then you're going to miss some votes.
Would you rather have him fly there, cast the vote, and fly back on the taxpayer's dime? Or just, come on, the legislation is done. You're counting the vote, right? He's casting a vote. It doesn't seem very efficient to require everybody to be in the same spot at the same time to cast that vote, given, what we've just been through and just simple logic.
Well, Dominic, how about a vote that repeals the 1991 Gulf War authorization?
Yes.
That seems like an important vote. Maybe Ron could have been there in
proxy
person.
Vote was cast by Rep. Jerry Conley, a Democrat from Virginia. Ron voted. His vote was cast. It was counted. What's the problem? And I'll say that for the Republicans. Let's move beyond all this old school stuff and realize that, there's some inefficiencies on the way we're doing things. And to make this the political issues, the right's doing it, the left's doing it. Come on, everyone gets a hall pass and they go do these political things. That's what's happening. I acknowledge that. But let's also look at what the process is and what kind of old ass requirement is that someone has to physically be there to do this job. Come on.
Dominic, I remember when our old pal Joel Clayfish got lit up on the John Oliver show for voting proxy for others. You're not supposed to do that in the Wisconsin Assembly either. I called Joel that night and I said, Joel, you're on John Oliver. He said, is it bad? I said, it's pretty bad. You look pretty bad. I got to tell you, I oppose you on this issue, Dom. I think the representatives should vote in person, not by proxy. Or there should be some limitation, man. Even we got to limit you. You'd be mailing this show in every day.
As long as my vote
show by proxy.
As long as I cast the vote, why does it matter where I'm at?
Come back with us. It matters that you keep listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Your phone calls next. We'll be right back.
Talk it out, man. Hope you don't mind if I pay you in cash. I don't like Big Brother getting into my business.
From Portage to Watertown, Devil Radio on WTTN 1580 AM is essential radio to get you through your day.
Tune into Sharp Elbows. It's on at 10 a.m. Saturdays with me, Representative Francesca Hong, and my friend Nada Elmakashvi. Every Saturday morning, we want to have a conversation with you about what's going on in the world. Whether it's on the biggest issues, current events, or people who inspire us, let's discuss it all. It's kind of like brunch, but with politics, guests, and callers. No shortage of fun, but also be prepared for some serious truth-telling. Talk to y'all soon.
Sharp Elbows airs Saturdays 10 a.m. only on Devil Radio 92.7.
Aho, Wisconsin. This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, a new Native American theme show live weekdays from 6 to 7 p.m. on Devil Radio 92.7. Each day, activists and newsmakers will provide updates on protecting Mother Earth. As we all know, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. We invite all people to walk hand in hand with our struggles, victories, and achievements. Join us for our Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake weeknights at 6 p.m. on Devil Radio.
In Florida, I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden visited Surfside, Florida today. He met with some of the crews involved in the search for victims of the collapse of a 12-story condo building a week ago.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Rescue efforts have been halted at the site because the remaining structure is growing unstable. New York City prosecutors say Donald Trump's company and its longtime finance chief carried out what they call a sweeping and audacious tax fraud scheme in which the executives collected more than $1.7 million in off-the-books compensation. Trump Organization lawyer Alan Puterfus.
In 244 years, we have not had a local prosecutor go after a former president of the United States or his employees or his company.
Trump himself was not charged, but prosecutors say he signed some of the checks at the center of the alleged scheme. I'm Tim McGuire.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our 4th of July special. The new Queen Sleep Number 360 C2 Smart Bed is only $8.99. Plus free premium delivery when you add a base. Ends Monday. To learn more, go to sleepnumber.com.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Yesterday, the Wisconsin State Senate approved the Republican-authored $87.5 billion biennial budget, which will now go before Governor Tony Evers. The governor has 6 days to sign, veto, or make changes to the budget with a line-item veto. The GOP-passed budget looks very different from the proposal Governor Evers had sent to the legislature back in February. The Joint Finance Committee stripped hundreds of the governor's policy proposals, including expanding Badger Care and investing $1.6 billion in Wisconsin schools. The Wisconsin governor has one of the most powerful line-item vetoes in the country, but Governor Evers has floated the potential for a full veto of the budget. Sunny skies in the forecast today, with temperatures expected to get up to around 81 degrees. Partly cloudy skies expected to roll in this evening with an overnight low of 55 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Thursday 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on with your phone calls going to the lines. It's all about the lines here, Dom, at 844-967-2789. Hope Matt Flynn's doing well. Hope Jeannie from Eau Claire's doing well. She's first. Jeannie, welcome back. What do you got for us?
Hey, Jeannie.
I feel, as a registered voter, that it's important that my congressman meet with and support the president, the United States of America president, as he visits our district to discuss the infrastructure bills. And And in all honesty, we have had nonstop American for Prosperity group running a variety of ads, so it must cost them a big bucks of money during our nightly news when everybody turns on the TV, and it's just sickening. And they got a variety of them. From the farmers going to be hurt, from the small businesses going to be hurt, and all this kind of stuff regarding Ron Kind and Nancy Pelosi every night. And they've changed the ad, so this isn't a cheap deal that they're doing with their propaganda. So you guys, he should take off and he should be there next to our president as the president explains what this, bill was due for our area here. So
Jeannie, I got no qualms with Ron Kind showing up at the Pearl ice cream shop. We were there. I said hi to Ron.
I know you don't.
He helped the president order his strawberry and cookies and cream. The only issue I take is that he used a proxy vote under untrue circumstances. I mean, I don't care if Ron Kind takes the day off work and does differing work, goes and sees the president in his backyard. Hell yeah, I'd be there too. We were there for a reason. But you don't need to be there for the proxy votes. I mean, essentially, then you miss the day's votes. You don't need to claim that you were indefinitely confined by coronavirus to miss the votes that day. Just be absent. Or if the vote is so close, if this came down to a one vote margin and Ron Kind was the deciding vote, I'm sure he could get, an excused absence from the ice cream parlor. Truth is truth, Jeannie. He didn't tell the full and utter
Jeannie,
truth.
I'm with you, man. Come on, let's just be honest about this. We're
You
all
could say it's not a big
here.
deal, but he didn't tell the truth.
Listen, okay, but if Ron Kind, as his communications department has said, did discuss COVID with the president, does that give him Crudy's pass? He said the word COVID-19 to the president. He now has the pass. Crudy's a purist in this form. Jeannie, what do you think?
The Republicans, wait a minute. If it wasn't for the damn Republicans in the first place, like a bridge, the dam over the bridge, anyway, if they didn't lie to us and cause all these griefs in all of our states, we wouldn't even be worried about the coronavirus. I don't know what his coronavirus issues are. I really don't. I don't know if he's had the shot or anything like that.
Well, perhaps we should expand the proxy vote criteria then, Gene. I mean, hey, if the president of your party is in your district during these votes, then, splice these out and articulate it for Crudy why he's missing the vote. I mean, I get it. It's a reach, Jeannie, to say, well, I talked about it with the president when he was picking out his ice cream. I understand that, but the right's doing it, the left's doing it. I mean, we're talking about we're adults and this is a functioning, quote unquote, democracy. We should be able to figure these things out.
Ron Kind also, or at least his communications team said, well, it wasn't a campaign stop. It was
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
It was visiting constituents, not a campaign stop. No rallies, no speeches to the masses.
It was an official White House visit, not a campaign by the White House, Gene.
And look at the people from this hour. It's a mess and it's disgusting. And the Republicans will go after one person when they're all doing something, and it's sickening. I mean, they've caused a lot of deaths. They've caused a lot of grief. They've caused just havoc in our country, and we're gonna pick on Ron Kind. It's just frustrating to me and alarming because not everybody went after Republicans when they're going to meet for Trump, and then they voted due to COVID. And those are the people, that wouldn't wear a mask and wouldn't get shots, and it's frustrating, guys.
Well, let's give the Republicans equal time. They didn't vote by proxy last year during the pandemic. They didn't meet at all, Jeannie, for like 9 months. The Republicans took 9 months off, didn't advance the ball for their own constituents here in the state of Wisconsin for 9 months. Ron Kind took the afternoon off and met with the president in his district. I see the former as the larger crime, if you will, Jeannie.
I do too, and a huge crime. And we wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for them and admitting and trying to, work through a real pandemic and a real emergency. So they're disgusting. They can play all those games they want to, but I will never vote for Republican again in my life because they're such liars and thieves. I mean, what they've done and continue to do and not even acknowledge what's going on, and even with the January 6th, what they you know what I mean, and they won't even address it. And then them leaving to go down to Trumpville, when they're voting on the July 6th committee to have one or not, they just take off, and it's frustrating when you get people that really are trying to work for us, and that kind of crap's going on. Anyway, thanks, guys.
All right, Zane. Thank you. Have a great holiday weekend.
844-967-2789. Dick from Madison. Welcome back, Dick. Don't tell me both sides do it.
Hey, Dick.
I certainly won't. Boy, she said it all. Gene, it's just awesome. Excuse me for slighting you. I had to stop at the Jade Monkey and at least hoist a couple because this is a bigly day. 16 counts? Are you kidding? I'm loving this. And can you just hear Weisselberg saying, hey, boss, I told you we should have had 2 sets of books. I told you.
Well, they did have 2 sets of books. That might be the problem, Dick.
Maybe they should have had 3 or 4, Dick.
4, right. But, and then to Melania, guys, what do you think? Isn't it time for her to cash out? Because I don't think there's going to be anything to cash out to if she doesn't soon.
Oh, that's a great point, Dick. Presumably she's got some sort of prenup. She renegotiated to move out of New York to that S-hole, the White House. Maybe she does want to, get out, but we also don't know what her involvement is in any of this stuff. If she was the recipient, Melania, right? If she was
I don't think she was filing the 1040s on behalf of the corporation.
Did she sign the documents of her family or tax returns if they filed jointly? If she did, and Trump was pulling the same kind of stuff that Weisselberg was pulling, and I can't imagine Weisselberg was the only one pulling it, then she's got just as many, maybe not as many problems, but she also would have some exposure, Dick.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think that if she, she better cash out real soon. But what a day. I'm serious.
What a day, baby.
I am so happy. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just starting.
Dick, appreciate your call and your celebratory mood. I hope everyone's having a happy 4:00 happy hour listening to the Devil's Advocates. Joe from Madison, you're next. Welcome.
Hey, Joe.
Oh, I think the celebratory mood is definitely warranted, but and God, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I did want to respond to the Voting Rights Act and what's being done with the evisceration of that with the Supreme Court decision. And one thing I hope people would consider, and I wasn't aware of this, but it's a fascinating detail, which is one of the groups that was most harmed by voter suppression has been Native Americans within Arizona, in part because those folks oftentimes live a long distance from polling places. They may not have cars. They're counting on friends to get them place to place. They don't have what you have in big cities where you can take the bus to get to the polling place. So they were harmed. They will be harmed by these changes in voting rights. And I would just throw into the mix here that, for Native Americans in this country, the right to vote is something that is more precious even than for African Americans or for anyone else, because as I understand it, they did not get full citizenship until 1924 when the Snyder Act went through. And at that point, they said, okay, Native Americans born in this country will get full rights as citizens. But even that didn't get them guaranteed the right to voting, to be assured the right to vote. And apparently it took over 40 years from that 1924 Act, the Snyder Act, till all states guaranteed that Native Americans could have the right to vote. And now here we are in a situation right back at it. And as I understand, for a lot of Native Americans who voted against Trump in Arizona, it was because they requested PPE gear when COVID was hitting them very hard. And apparently it was being administered by Jared. And one of the things that came through for them when they requested PPE equipment were body bags. Oh, gee, there's a statement, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and so when we think about Voting Rights Act, it's Native Americans who've been affected by this too. And I didn't realize that it was such a long time till all states guaranteed the right for Native Americans to vote. Apparently the last was not in the Southwest, it was the state of Maine and their Native American population. So I am celebrating what's happening with Trump, but I'm downbeat about what's happening with voting rights. And boy, I hope you can return to that and explore that even more. I thought that Jim was great, but I'd love to hear more on that subject. Thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate everything you do.
Thanks, Joe. But perhaps more bad news in that regard. The Biden Department of Justice had the opportunity to basically say something about this Supreme Court ruling on Arizona. And effectively, the Biden DOJ, the Merrick Garland DOJ, agreed with this ruling. They didn't contest the ruling prior to the ruling. So that is troubling. And I would point out, here in the state of Wisconsin, we don't have to look to Arizona. Indigenous peoples in the state of Wisconsin helped deliver the state of Wisconsin for Joe Biden. They were the most reliable Democratic voters in the state of Wisconsin in the last elective cycle. In 2020, Indigenous people, it was over 80% for Joe Biden. Overwhelming. So what's Joe doing for them? At least in the state of Arizona, his DOJ is just fine with the newest rulings.
Well, Biden doesn't control the DOJ. He said he's going to keep an arm's length from Merrick Garland at the DOJ, which is good because we don't want the president using the DOJ as their personal attorneys.
No, but we could have the president get on the bully pulpit and stand up for Indigenous voters in Arizona and all voters in Arizona and make it very, very clear what his thought process is, that effectively any voter suppressive efforts are anti-American efforts, anti-patriotic efforts, and they're happening nationwide. And the fact that we let this one go, not me or you or Joe Biden perhaps, but his attorney general did, without remark, without contesting it, just said, just a little more erosion to the Voting Rights Act. You know, what are you going to do? Well, fight like hell when you have the opportunity. Get up on the bully pulpit on the stump and tell people this is what's going on, because it's going on across the country. Everywhere where Republicans can suppress the votes, they will, and they do. Just see the great state of Wisconsin. We got many more callers lining up. You could be next, but we're running short on time, and we're doing a best of tomorrow. So unless Trump gets indicted, it's you and the best of tomorrow. You better dial right now, 844-967-2789. More Devil's Advocates.
Lieutenant Dan, I got you some ice cream.
As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there's some things we do not know.
Lieutenant Dan, ice cream.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
This is Chad Spate. Are you thinking about improving or expanding your home? At Chad's Design Build, we're committed to making your home comfortable, healthy, attractive, durable, and sustainable. In fact, those commitments spell our name. And we deliver these services with our outstanding team of professionals who will respect you and your home. Visit our website at chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more about how we are building a better world, one remodeled home at a time.
President Biden's American Jobs Plan would invest in clean energy jobs, move the country towards clean power, and create millions of good-paying jobs for families like yours. It's the most progressive plan to create American jobs in decades. Members of Congress need to hear that this plan would help you and your family. Join Move On's fight to help working families. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. Paid for by MoveOn.org Civic Action.
Do you want Wisconsin to suck? I don't. That's why you're listening to me now. I'm Hawk, owner of the Jade Monkey. Come to the Monkey and tell them you're there because the devil sent you. Then I can spend more money on ads and help Devil Radio keep Wisconsin from spiraling into post-apocalyptic Republican suckage. I mean, that's Iowa's job. Buy a round of the Jade Monkey and save Wisconsin one drink at a time.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
Madison, you say what? Each weeknight from 5 to 6, don't miss out on a single day of the Earl Ingram Show right here on Devil Radio 92.7 FM, 1580 AM.
Hear history as it happens, only on Devil Radio 92.7 FM.
The Devil's Advocates, so relevant they have one foot in tomorrow.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, pick up the phone, hit us up right now. Toll-free talk or text at 844-967-2789.
Dominic Kelsey's hitting that holiday road, or more likely the airwaves. She's flying in from L.A. Going to see Kelsey over the holiday weekend.
Nice.
Very excited. Miss her. Dom, one quick breaking headline, sort of a sad one. The Shorewood Spitter has lost her legal counsel. The attorney for the Shorewood woman facing a hate crime charge after video showed her spitting at a black protester last year has asked to leave the case right before a critical motion hearing. John Lukzak has represented Stephanie Rapkin since she was charged in June of 2020. This week, he asked to withdraw from the case. Court records show he told Rapkin, 65, that if she didn't pay a nearly $10,000 legal bill by July 1st, he would try to leave the case. It's not
There had to have been a second spitter.
It's not just the unpaid bill. Lukzak wrote in an affidavit. He said the attorney-client relationship had broken down such that it would be unreasonably difficult to continue representing Rapkin. Due to my duty of confidentiality, I can't further explain the reasons without violating attorney-client privilege. Rapkin, a lawyer, filed her own response saying she's already paid Lukzak's firm, Gimbel, Riley, Gurin, and Brown more than $40K, and that Lukzak agreed to convert the balance of his fees going forward to a fat and flat $35,000. That's a fat fee.
That is one magic loogie.
The Shorewood Spitter without legal representation. What a shame.
What a shame.
I hear Rudy's available these days.
That's a shame.
844-967-2789. Going back to the phones and our fair audience. Guys like Tom from Madison. Welcome back, Tom. What do you got for us?
Hello, Tom.
Hey, guys. I'm definitely celebrating the indictments today, but
yeah,
the thing I love about the Devil's Advocates is that you guys even pick on Democrats. I mean, you don't get that on the other side.
Well, they pick on Democrats plenty on the other side. Our audience sometimes gets mad when we call out the Democrats when we try to be truth tellers, Tom. We're not picking, we're telling the truth.
Well, not everybody's into that. I was just reading Chris Kapenga's ode to Donald Trump.
And Thor, don't forget Thor, Tom.
Oh, God, as the I feel the need to respond to you, even though you will never hear of it, as the power of your pen to mine is like Thor's hammer to a bobby pin. But I also wanted to see those Donald Trump socks that he got on the plane with. That would have to be incredible.
Yeah, if he'd only had one shoved in his mouth and some duct tape.
I love it. I love it.
Tom, where were you when we were doing the dramatic reading yesterday? Could have used you, fella.
Yeah, that was pretty solid,
Hey,
Tom.
I'm there. Actually, I was auditioning for a commercial in Milwaukee today, but I was listening to you on the way home and figure I'd throw that in there. I've just laughed myself crazy when I read that letter, and then I thought, he's probably embarrassed by it, but he posted it on his Facebook page.
Oh, right.
He knows no shame, Tom. And if you really want the good version, go to the New York Times and read the annotated version, something about the perfect Trump sycophant letter.
Actually, I posted that to his website and to his Facebook page.
Well done.
Tom, he was
Oregon, the God of Thunder.
We honored Chris Kapinga. He was the original, the namesake D-bag from the awarding of D-bag of the day, and he won it again yesterday.
Deserved.
He won it.
Well deserved, guys.
It's quite an honor,
Have a good
Tom.
one.
Thanks,
All
buddy.
right, Tom. Thanks for calling, man.
Have a great
Appreciate it.
4th weekend.
And great reading, man. I mean, Tom, that was pretty solid. I think Tom's had some professional training.
Oh, he's solid. Wish the cast of characters around here were better at reading and loading dramatically. Wisco Paul, he's always good for a take or two. Paul, welcome back. What do you got for us?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, good afternoon, Devils. First of all, I'd like to wish you both a really good 4th of July weekend.
Thanks,
Should
man.
be
You
a
too.
Fun one. Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to Jeannie from Eau Claire and Joe from Madison. Just two terrific callers that make your show one of the best, at least in the southern Wisconsin area. They're just great callers.
When you throw in yours, Paul, I just think 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Oh, come on.
Hey, there's no way I can top those two ladies. The only thing I might add is quickly is the voter bill, HR1. If that doesn't pass, you could very well see, because gerrymandering is the problem. That's why you get people like Kapinga, complete idiots, bootlickers or whatever you want to call them. So what's the chances of that getting any light of day, Crudy and Dom? I hope there is some. I'm a little worried on Biden's agenda as a whole. Thanks for taking my call, and again, have a great 4th, you guys.
Thanks, Paul. SB1, HB1, I am more and more concerned all the time, not only that it will not pass, but even if the Democrats had success jamming it through the Senate by some sort of 50-50 plus one, set aside the filibuster for one piece of very important legislation, my greatest fear is showing the U.S. Supreme Court has shown that they don't respect democracy. And even if this law was enacted, my greatest fear is immediately there'd be attacks on the law. It'd go before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Roberts Court, with a few new conservative additions, would basically undermine any legislation set up to basically check in and rein in the unrestrained cash and craziness we have in campaign finance laws. And the gerrymandering, Paul, I mean this in all sincerity, even with a new, less gerrymandered, more fair map, the Democrats still have to win rural districts in the state of Wisconsin. And there is zero evidence that I've seen recently, not in 8 years or more, that we have any sort of appealing message in the rural parts of the state of Wisconsin. I mean, Dane County's turning them out. Dane County helped Joe Biden win re-election or win election here in the state of Wisconsin. If Tony Evers wins again, he'll have to thank Dane and Milwaukee counties. But ultimately, legislative majorities, it's not just
there's
the
still work to
gerrymander.
do. Well, that's a part of it, and certainly getting more fair maps will be a big portion of it. But I think it does help that you have the president of the United States occasionally, swinging over to call it rural parts of Wisconsin. It is important. It is important for Ron Kind to be there. It's going to be a battle. And so we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out, Cody. But I'm with you, man. That's not a guarantee, and there's still a lot to be done.
A very important conversation about COVID and sugar cones. Thank you to our fine guest, James Santelle. Thanks, Jim. Stick around. We got Earl Ingram next, the Native Roots Radio. Keep it locked right here, Devil Radio 92.7, and have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Be safe out there.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do.
You got nothing. Lewis bet me that we couldn't both get rich and put you on the poorhouse at the same time. He didn't think we could do it. I won.
I did what I came to do.
Here in